This conference will now be recorded.
There's a flag in there somewhere. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the
flag
United States
of
of
the United
America,
States of
States of
America,
America,
to the republic
and to the republic
and which
for which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
one
under God,
under God,
of God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Thank you, everyone.
The roll call, shall we? Director Duncan.
I am here.
Hello there, Dave. Director Johnson.
Here.
Hi, Diane. Vice President Baker.
I'm here.
And Tammy. And President Dice.
I am here. Thank you.
Are you really here? Or just another dream? Ooh. Can
I
anybody
think
hear? Can
I'm
anybody hear
awake.
Kathy? I can't hear Kathy. Let's retract.
I'm awake, and the room we were all in was very odd. So we weren't virtual, so that made it even worse. Okay. Let's see. We have an agenda before us, and if no one has any objections, I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
I so move.
Okay, I got a motion by Mr. Duncan and a second by Ms. Johnson. And are there any comments or questions or objections to this? If not, I will call the roll to approve the agenda. Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Duncan,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
and I also approve, so it's unanimous. We're going to go forward with our agenda. Are there any comments from the public and or requests for future agenda items that have not been, anything that's not been addressed in today's agenda? Hearing nothing and seeing no hands, I will ask if there are any directors from the, any comments from the directors. I'm awake.
Yes, I do, Kathy. I'd like to thank all the candidates for showing interest in the open director's seat. It is not often. In fact, I don't think it's ever been that we've had such a wide selection of people, and I really appreciate the fact that people have taken an interest in what we do here.
Yeah, it's we are very pleased, and it's a terrible dilemma at the same time. But we will. It's a good dilemma to have. It's good trouble. So thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Okay. So, Mr. Poole, do we have any correspondence from the public today?
And none received, Madam President.
Okay. So with that taken care of, we'll go down to section 2, the items for board consideration. And up at the top of our list, 2A is our interviews and possible selection for filling the vacant board of directors position. And that's where we're at now. And Jeff sent me a script to read. And as Dave said earlier, I want to thank the candidates. We have 4 of them today, and that's amazing. And we're so pleased that you're interested in what the Borrego Water District does, and that you want to participate and be a help to this organization. So we want this process to be as stress-free as possible. And so the board will ask up to 2 questions each from the list that I think you have all received. And they appeared in the board packet as well. And possibly, we'll ask 1 or 2 other questions based on your specific background and what you have sent to us. To be fair to all the candidates, we are requesting only the candidate being interviewed log into the meeting. We cannot force any member of the public to leave the meeting, so this would be fully voluntary. But the interviews will occur alphabetically. So we'll have Bernard Campbell, Jay Mao, Gina Moran, and then John Peterson. And you will be notified via text 5 minutes before your interview will begin. And at the end of the interview, we request you hang up as previously mentioned, then we will proceed to the next candidate. That way, everybody gets alone time with the board. And following the end of the interview process, you will be notified that the deliberation and possible selection process has begun. Um, Feel free to log back into the meeting if you desire. If you do not feel the need to listen to the process, each candidate will be notified today about the board selection if that occurs, or if this item has been deferred to the 24th of January regular BWD board meeting. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so Kathy,
Yes.
are we going to do what we did last time, where we go round in a circle, and then if some people, through the directors asking questions, and if someone doesn't have a question, they just pass, and we go to the next
Yes.
person until yeah, okay.
Yes. We're all going
Yeah.
to ask a couple of questions by taking turns, and then we'll allow any of the directors to ask any follow-up questions that are not on the list that might be about something that mentioned from their background. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like the
Okay.
process we did last time.
Yeah,
That worked.
similar.
Yeah, that worked
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We're doing that, and then by law we deliberate uh, in public. So, as uncomfortable as that is, we must do that. So, everybody okay with the process? Then I will ask all the candidates. Well, Bernard, Mr. Campbell, you can stay on, and the other three should log off for now.
Okay.
Thanks. And we will let you know when to come back.
And the other candidates will receive a text from Esmeralda. She actually just sent the phone number out to everyone, just so it's a recognizable phone number, so.
Yeah. So you won't think you're being spammed.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. So, Mr. Bernard, it's nice to meet you. I haven't seen you in person yet.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he's gone. John's gone now. Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Kathy.
Yes. Nice to see you sort of in person. And
Sort of, yeah.
so I will begin by asking you a question, and then I'll pass this off to Tammy.
Okay.
I I hope that I should introduce. Well, they'll introduce. I'll have each director introduce themselves in case you haven't met them before.
Okay.
So I'll just start right off the top and ask you why you're interested in this position.
Let's see. I've owned this house about 5 years, Kathy, but we've only lived here full time for about the last year. Always been interested in community. Actually went to graduate school to study public policy and urban planning. Um, Most of my community activities were limited to my kids when I was younger, taught them in school sports and things like that. But I'm now at a point in my career that I can get involved in more stuff. And when you're living in Borrego or really anywhere in the southwestern part of the country, water is a big thing. And if there's something that I can do to help in any way, the water district operate in the best way possible, I'm happy to.
Thank you. Ms. Baker?
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Hey, Bernard. I've
Hi, how are
been
you?
good. How are you? It's a
Good, thanks.
gorgeous day out there. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's bright and beautiful, and we're all stuck here in this meeting. So thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been on the board a couple years, so I'm halfway through my first term here.
Right.
So you have a really interesting background in marketing, and so I was curious what you think the marketing challenges are for Borrego Water District.
Well, I thought about that. I mean, I have an interesting career in marketing for sure, but I'm more simply just a fairly seasoned business executive. When you ask about the marketing challenges for a water district that already is tasked with providing more water than is being replaced, it's kind of a funny position to be in. And we don't want to get people to buy more water. We don't want to get people to spend more water. money on water in this community. But separate from my marketing, a lot of what I've done is help Fortune 100 companies make important decisions. In some cases, multi-billion dollar decisions. So I don't mean to duck your question. I'm just not sure that the Borrego Water District really has marketing challenges. I think they have business challenges. And in that way, I'm sitting here, not as a marketer.
Hey, thanks.
Mr. Duncan.
Yes, good morning.
Hi, Mr.
So
Duncan.
this,
How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for being interested. I don't mean to underscore this, but we rarely have had such interest in participating on the BWD board. This is a novel challenge for us.
That's a
So
good thing.
my uh, it is. I mean, it really is. Can you tell me what you know about the stipulated judgment that has been entered on our behalf to reconcile the overdraft here of our aquifer?
I think I know what you're referring to. I think I know that the town needs to cut its water usage in a significant way over a fairly long period of time, close to 70%, and that some of the issues facing the water district moving forward is how to make that happen in the most equitable and efficient way possible.
Thank you. So my second question is what sort of management experience do you have that is relative to the operations of BWD?
Let's see. Certainly, I have never been involved in a water district before. I have never been involved in issues around water before. Most of the issues I've been around have been around the automobile business. So as a couple for instances, I was asked by Magna Corporation when they were assessing an acquisition of the Chrysler Corporation, which would definitely was a multi-billion dollar acquisition, to sit on a team of advisors advising them on how to and whether to make that bid acquisition. Um, I was asked by General Motors when they were spinning off the Hummer division to come in and help them with the bankers at Citibank with that spinoff. As a miracle, we sold it to a group of Chinese investors successfully, and ultimately the Chinese government put a kibosh on the deal, but it was really a proud moment for all of us. So I haven't really gotten involved in water issues, but I've been involved in some big ticket issues where we're looking at companies that, make things. It's not simply marketing. We're looking at harder issues of product and such. And in that way, I thought I could help Borrego Water District in a small way in making some of the decisions that they face on the best way to move forward, spend money, and achieve your goals.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Hi, I'm Diane Johnson. Hi, Bernard.
Hi,
I
Diane.
the board. Hi, about I think 4 years now, and I've lived in Borrego for going on 20, and I'm involved in a whole bunch of different organizations, which can get overwhelming. But when you get to know Borrego, you see how everything is connected to everything else. So I'm wondering how you kind of keep up with what's going on in Borrego. What is your familiarity with our community?
Let's see. We've owned the house for about 5 years, but we've only lived here 1 year. So up until about a year ago, our only real community attachment were our neighbors, who we're quite friendly with. But through them and through some work that my wife has done, my wife is now selling at the farmers market, and I often join her down there on Fridays. I've gotten to know a good number of people in the community. Through Jack and Joanne Sims, our neighbors, I've gotten to know a good number of people in the community, and I love it. I mean, I just had a situation the other day where uh, uh, the battery in my motorcycle died. The people at Fudge Factory were super supportive in terms of helping me get it charged. The people at the drugstore actually came out with a charger to charge my bike, and it's sitting right now over at the Napa Parts store, which agreed to hold on to the bike for me while we wait for a battery to come in. So all very kind and very gracious people, and really that's been our experience in the year that we've lived here.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, Mr. Campbell, tell us what you know about the Borrego Water District and how you
Uh,
see it.
yeah, let's see. I mean, of course, I'm a customer. And when you ask what I know about the water district, um, first and foremost, I know that you need to reduce consumption in this community. Um, and I know that there are ways to reduce consumption of any product um, that involve pricing it in a way that's consistent with all of the externalities associated with consuming that product. So pricing is a very efficient tool. If we needed to reduce consumption a lot, we would just push our prices through the roof, but that's not often a very equitable approach to handling it. So I know that there's a balance between equity and efficiency, and I know that the reduction that's required is quite a significant one. So I know that it's a fairly significant challenge that the community faces.
Thank you.
Sure.
Tammy? Oh, you're muted, Tammy.
Yeah, sorry, thanks. Hey, Bernard.
Hi,
I'm
Tim.
interested in how you've dealt with conflict in the past. Some situation, either, one example is perhaps a disagreement with some person of authority, your boss or some other person of authority. How did you work through that? What resolution came to pass? So if you think to one of the experiences you've had, could you share that with us and explain the process that you went through to resolve the problem?
Wow, let's see. Um, Now I raised three kids and two of them are daughters. So my first thought goes to being a father and not a professional, but I will keep it on the professional side. So when you are involved in like just any one of the two issues that I talked about, where a company's going to acquire another company for many billions of dollars, or a company is going to sell a division, there are a lot of pretty heated and pretty emotional moments. There's a lot of money involved. There's people's lives involved. Um, and what I think I have done, at least from what people have told me for most of my career, is, I'm a fairly direct person. I grew up on the East Coast with an Italian mother and an Irish father. Um, it was a fairly direct interaction style that I get used to as a kid. And I'm still pretty direct, but always respectful. Try to be always poised and calm in any situation. And I haven't really, like, I could think of conflict as a dad for sure, but I can't really think of that many conflicts that I've had as an adult because of my personality. People know where I stand. I make it clear, but I make it clear in a respectful way. And I try to stay calm in all situations. So I'm not often in a lot of conflict oriented situations at work that I am like not calming, where I am involved in inflaming that conflict. It's just not in my personality.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, do you have another question?
I asked two. I
Oh,
think I'm
we
good.
can,
Thank you.
okay. Diane?
Yes, I just thought of one, but I was so busy
Sure.
taking notes on what Bernard said that now I've lost it. How do
Okay.
you deal with older people, Bernard? You, you don't need to
I
answer that.
I am an older person, Diane.
Um, shoot, let's
I
see.
I can come back to you if you want to give it
Okay,
a
yeah,
minute.
if you would. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Um, so, Ms. Campbell, are you planning to? I guess you probably know that the board meets twice a month on the second and fourth Tuesdays. And
I
right
do.
now we are virtual, which is not handy. Eventually, I think we will become either hybrid or in person again, as the
Good.
comfort levels um, get get better if they ever do. Um, and so I wanted to ask you, if you would be available most of the time for those meetings.
Yes. I
If,
talked about that issue with Jeff, Kathy.
okay.
I still do work, so I did
Mm-hmm.
raise the issue. Um, I still occasionally travel for work, and we usually go back to the East Coast for a couple months in the summer to spend time with family. I got grandchildren. Um, so I needed to know that there were options to in-person attendance to participating on this board. Jeff assured me that there was. So I feel comfortable with the level of responsibilities. He's kind of talked me through the level of responsibilities. He's kind of talked me through when the board meetings were and said they're probably going to go at some back to in person, which is great. I don't love Zoom. I don't love any of these technologies. And but I like having it as an option for those times that I might be on business travel or I might be back east for a couple months in the summertime.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we don't make people staple themselves to Borrego, but we like to know that you're here
Yeah,
a good amount of the time. And I also wanted to make sure that, and I'm sure Jeff brought this up too, that we do have California Political Reform Act that requires us to disclose our private business holdings and our interests um, related to, essentially related to Borrego or anything that might be a conflict. So wanted to make sure you knew about that and that you were prepared to fill out all the right forms and disclose all the things that they're asking you to
yeah. I
to.
don't know the details of that disclosure, Kathy.
Yeah.
Normally, I would say I'm fine with it, but having never seen the details of the disclosure, I would hedge just a little bit. I cannot imagine it would be a problem.
Yeah, it's the part of the Fair Political Practices Commission, and
Yep.
it's something that we all have to do. Actually, it's coming up again once every year. So um, if just so you're aware of that, that's
I am. And
part of being a public servant. So
yes.
okay,
And my short answer is I would not expect that to be a problem.
okay, thank you. And Diane, did you
I'm,
remember?
I'm wondering if Jeff Esmeralda could send the candidates, what is it, Form S 700 or 770, or the link to that county website so that they can see. We are supposed to divulge stock holdings, for example, in detail, Mr. Campbell, which can be kind of a pain in the neck
Pain in the
if you
neck.
have very
Yeah.
many. Um, it's it's not total detail. If I remember right, it's under 2,500, under 10,000, or over 10,000 dollars worth of stock, etc. Would 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 that be good to share with the candidates?
It would, Diane. Thank you for that. And on that specific issue, um, my stock holdings are held in mutual funds. I don't invest in individual stocks.
Okay.
I have that situation too, and our lawyer said that I really should get down into the nitty gritty. um, and and say that it's less than $2,500 of AT&T or whatever it might be. So
Yeah, I could place a call to the person that helps me with that and figure out what I could provide there.
All right.
okay.
Diane,
Thanks.
did you remember your other question?
Um, um, no, um, well, I guess I have you been reading about the water, reading the articles in the Sun, for example, Mr. Campbell, about the distinction between this, our water district and the water master, et cetera. The water district is just one player in the valley in water. Well, it's always been that way, but now we're formalized. Uh, are you familiar with the Water Master Board at all?
I can't answer yes to that question, but I can answer yes to the question. I read the Borrego Sun and I read most of the articles that refer to the water district.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions of us?
No, I appreciate all your questions. I appreciate your time deliberating on this. And no, I think I feel good about it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, thank you so much for your interest and wanting to get involved in the community. And as Diane says, there's only about 500,000 ways to get involved in the community, and this is merely one, but you
Right.
have to follow your interests, and I appreciate that.
Okay
So
then.
we'll talk to you later.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you. You too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
So we're going to bring Mr. Mao on to speak to us. Mr. Mao, are you there? Oh, not yet. Okay. Esmeralda's getting in touch with him.
Looks like this is going to be another one of those storms that pass us by, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, I was really hoping for another few showers, but the possibility of that keeps going down.
I think our upper watershed is probably getting some okay
Oh,
rain.
yeah, and actually a little too much. My
Oh, yeah.
my hometown is in the process of being destroyed by the waves and the
Oh,
water. The rivers are overflowing and the waves are crashing through um, buildings and beaches and parks and everything. So it's pretty
my
bad up
God.
there.
I
So
actually,
we have to be careful what we wish for.
I was thinking of Anza. I was being very local with my idea of a
Yeah,
watershed.
no, yeah, I think every time I see clouds at up the top of Coyote Canyon, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Always a good thing up there.
Well, I was in the Bay Area last week and it was an
Oh,
absolute mess.
yeah,
Roads were, roads were closed and flooding was occurring. My son,
yeah.
who lives in Mill Valley, had no power for the entire time that I was up there, and they were camping out in a motel with the kids, and it
Wow.
was just really disruptive.
Yeah, have you seen the water Highway 99 up just south of Sacramento, how it's
Yeah,
literally underwater? All the levees have been overrun. So,
yeah, I saw that.
yeah. All right. Any sign of Jay?
Test. Hello? Earth, two people.
Green now. Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear us?
Now.
Can you hear us, Kathy?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Okay. Ooh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we gave Jay the 5-minute notice probably 2 minutes ago, right? Maybe 3 now, right when you were wrapping up.
Okay,
But
okay.
man, that was a great start, huh? Ay, ay, ay. What a guy. Yeah. Oh, and then I was trying to pipe in, I'm sorry, I did not bring up that FPPC stuff with them. I did not at all. So thank you very much for doing that, Kathy.
Okay,
And then,
I just,
and then on the meeting stuff, I mean, I think, and Steve's going to bring it up in his report today, I think we're going to have to go back to public meetings relatively soon. Steve, can you maybe do a little bit of an update now, just so the board knows what's going to be happening and how it might impact, you know, the availability and the viability of candidates, so if you don't mind? Well, and we can wait
Uh,
for Jay. Perfect timing.
do you want me to go ahead, Kathy, or should I wait?
is Jay here?
I'd say Steve, go ahead. While we're waiting
Yeah,
for
go
him, you
ahead,
Okay.
can do
Steve.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we got time.
as you know, the governor has declared that the emergency for COVID is going to end on February 28th. I don't know how he picked that day, but that's the day. And so the normal authorization to have these remote meetings is no longer, it appears, going to be in place. The legislature has come up with a few other options, but to be honest, they're not very good options. And so, to the extent board members want to participate remotely, the most viable alternative to allow that to continue to happen is through the old Brown Act procedure, which is still on the books, which is you got to put your name and address on the agenda. Whoops, and open up your garage door or wherever you're going to be sitting to the public. So that we can go over the ins and outs of that when we get to that item on the agenda in a little while. But
Okay,
the other options aren't so good. But I'll explain them to you then.
yeah, I'd like to hear more. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I think that's important. And then, because I did mention to Bernard that we're typically dark for 1 month during the summer, but you know, sometimes that changes.
Yeah,
So anyway, yeah, thanks for doing that, Steve.
maybe we'll get a chance to have that happen this year.
Yep, yep. Okay, I see Jay. Hi, Jay.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Mao.
Hi,
How are
good
you?
morning, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Morning.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Nice to see you. I haven't met you in person, but it's nice to see you at least virtually.
Likewise.
We so we have some questions for you, and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. Um, I I will start us off by just asking you why you're interested in becoming a director in the Borrego Water District.
Okay. Uh, First of all, I'm a resident. I'm a homeowner of Borrego Springs for the last on off 10 years actually, and my two kids went to school here, and we kind of moved to the San Diego because the school quality is not as good as it should be. And now one of my daughter, well, one of my kids just went to college, and only one left. So I really like Borrego Springs, the environment, and I really want to make it to be a better place than it is now. And for my background, I'm a finance guy, I'm a number guy, and I work with if you can tell from my short introductory letter, I worked for numerous utilities companies, oil trading companies in the past, and mostly serve as experts in the financial modeling, financial risk management. So I like to use my skills and experience to help to contribute to the operations and the management of the district. And again, in the grand scheme of the make Borrego Spring a better place to live. So that's kind of my I guess big picture thing. Again, I worked as a financial analyst, and then as a financial manager and a senior manager, and then as a director for Deloitte and Touche, which is a CPA company, and nationwide, internationally actually. And I have the so-called the training as a professional, with a professional skepticism. So basically, we review everything, but we verify, we trust but verify, and we ask questions, assumptions. Then we come with recommendations, and to the public and to the most times to the audit committees or risk committees of the companies. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of how the corporate works and how the senior management as well as the management team and the public wants to know. So that's kind of my, I guess, short summary of my experience. I think it's applicable to this position. So.
Thank you. Tammy.
Hi, Jay. I'm Tammy Baker. I'm one of the directors. I've been on the board for a couple years now. So could you give us some thoughts or whether you have any on some of the challenges that BWD is facing? Oops, you muted. Can't hear you. Yeah, Jay. Sorry, Jay, you're muted. I can't hear you.
There you
Okay,
are.
I think you're back.
Uh,
Yeah, there we go.
yeah,
Okay, we
whenever
can hear you
the
now.
wind blows, my internet has a problem. So I didn't hear your question. So could you please repeat?
Yes, yeah. I was interested in your thoughts on the challenges that the Borrego Water District faces as we look forward in the next coming couple years. What do you think our challenges are? What's going to be hard for us to do?
Okay. I kind of read up some of the past packets by the board and have a little bit understanding of what is going on. With the board district. In my view, I think that the challenging, I mean, it's a balance between the efficient operations by the board, and to meet the needs of the mandate or the needs of the public, and also the agency, I guess the trade-off between the now and the future. How to have to accommodate to make our living standard better, and how to also work for the future to make that in the future generations we still have enough to live on and to prosper. So in terms of, I mean, that's always a trade-off, and in all the the non-renewable resources like oil and the gas, same thing, but also with especially with the water, which is very limited. So actually, that's one of my questions I'd like to ask you later on is that, so the board, the management team wants to operate efficiently and with a good financial numbers, but the board wants to lead and to encourage the management team and the board, the district, in such a way that it has eyes on the future, and to meet the government agencies' need, the requirement, as well as the very stringent demand that the reduction of the water to be utilized in the future. So that to me, it's a trade-off, and also it's the balance of different needs of the communities, the homeowners, and the businesses, and I guess the future needs of the city by itself. So in my view, so that's kind of I can understand that with the money, with the budget, and what to do and what to choose, what's the best use of the money, and what's the best use of the resources and the people we have here, such that we can serve this bigger goal there. So I guess to me it's not too different from the company. Management team wants to profit, in a sense of profitability, the good financial numbers. Meanwhile, the board wants the management team to have a good ethics, to have good operations, and have a good HR people and good ethics. But that's kind of an ongoing, always ongoing issues there.
Hey, thank you, Jay. I think over to you now, Dave.
Well, good morning. My name's Dave Duncan. Excuse me. This is my 5th year on the board. I am currently representing the Borrego Water District on the Water Master Board. In fact, I am chairman currently of the Water Master Board. What is your understanding of what the Water Master does and its role in terms of managing groundwater here in the basin?
you're asking what's my understanding of the role of the water master.
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, I have back to know. My understanding is it's the role, the water master is to
His internet muted again.
Yeah. Jay, we can't hear you. Oh dear.
You can
Yeah, it's a
Jake,
poor
try turning
connection, I'm sure.
try turning off your video. You can hear us.
Jay, try again. Your video is, your connection is poor. There you go. You're going to have to start your speech over again.
Yeah, again, I apologize. I told Jeff that I might have a problem here. Actually, that's my experience. So again, the water master is to serve, is to balance the different needs of the different stakeholders and try to get the water that we need in the long run and in the short run, and how to make that happen. So that's my kind of a basic understanding of the role of the water master.
Thank you.
Diane.
Hi, I'm Diane Johnson. I've been on the board about 4 years and lived here in Borrego about 20 years. And it's nice to meet you. I wonder what kind of interactions you've had with the Borrego community, which actually, like everywhere else, I guess, turns out to be a bunch of smaller communities that work together. And what your negotiating style is, if you have to get involved in negotiations. I guess I wonder what your impression is of Borrego.
Okay. First part of the question, I guess I am actually I'm not too much involved with the Borrego Spring. My most involvement when my kids were here, like about 10 years ago. So I was involved with the elementary education and the middle school, and I was working with the library at that time. Library Eric Johnson on the like a chess club, basically anything related to the kids thing. And also my one of my kids still in the San Diego school district in the San Diego. So I work with them in terms of math education, STEM education, computer, and competition. And I intend to work maybe as volunteer for the high school. Now I have more time spent here in Borrego Springs. I think again my goal is to make it a better place. I think my expertise in financial modeling and in programming, I like to kind of start some courses like a Python or that kind of thing. So that's kind of my I guess not much with Borrego Springs, but with a lot of in San Diego, Del Mar area. That's where my kids right now is, and I did a lot. So I intend to move some of these activities here. Now I have more time here, full time. Okay. And second part question, what's my style? But I have a study as my part of my consulting work. Have studied and model, mostly model the like a long term like power purchase agreements, basically with a lot of options, a lot of different kind of different consequences and model that. So I guess if you ask my negotiation skill will be to model different scenarios with different kind of assumptions and corresponding outcomes. And with that, I can have a picture to say that, this is what you will get if you take option A with a certain probability versus the other option. If you do that, you will have such a if impact on your financial numbers and the risk profiles and the risk appetite. So kind of a thing that's my kind of a style is analytical based on the numbers and based on assumptions. Then I can draw some conclusion. Then at the end of the day, try to get a trade-off saying, well, if you do this, that's what will happen. If you do that, that will happen. So there's somewhere in between, maybe we can reach some consensus there. So that's kind of I guess if you made the not only the styles, the results I often get is to work with the different parties and different consumptions and to get a different results. So that's kind of my thing. My impression of the Borrego Spring, I think it's very I grow to like it a lot. It's very helpful community and and also a lot of the needs. I think that's one part I address in my letter is that I think I can bring that diversity in terms of diverse views, opinions, and also probably the clienteles and the representatives. I work with the elementary school. They're like I'll say 95% of Hispanic population, and as a result of that, I learned Spanish in the last 3 years, and I think I can read a very reading level very high right now, maybe a high school level reading there. So I think I can bring some diverse views and opinions, and at least I can have a perspective of different kind of a different mindset there. So that will be also one of my contribution to the board if I fortunate to get elected.
Those are interesting, useful skills. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned about the Spanish. Outreach to the community is a huge part of what BWD needs to do.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy, you're muted. Let me unmute you.
Well, that was helpful. I'm listening to you. I think, wow, you'd be a perfect candidate for the board, for the the school board. Have you thought about that?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, again, a lot of my recent experience are kind of education because my kids' education thing. So I, involve a lot on the technical side, but definitely I'll be open to like outreach to
Yeah,
teach people. Yeah.
they definitely need a lot of help, these days at the high school too. So that's nice that you're thinking about that. We have, as Jeff has already told you, we meet twice a month. Sometimes we take a month off in the summer, and we have just been told by our attorney that our COVID exemptions for, having virtual meetings are maybe coming to an end. So I wanted to so we won't be doing, it's likely that we'll be doing a lot fewer virtual meetings and more in-person meetings. And I'm wondering if that is a problem for you, if you're able to make most meetings. We don't expect you to be here all 12 months of the year, but we're wondering if you're able to accommodate the meetings that we do have.
For the most, let's say 10 months of the year, I should be here. No problem at all. In the summer, maybe the hottest summer, I might be gone for. We have an apartment in San Diego, so we will be there. But that shouldn't be a problem for me.
Okay. And I also wanted to mention that California has the Political Reform Act administered by the Fair Political Practices Commission, and I wanted to make sure that you were prepared to disclose any private business holdings you have, interests or relationships, with things that could be a conflict with the Borrego Water District, because we have to report that once a year. So I just wanted
No
to let
problem
you
at
know about
all.
that. Okay.
Yeah, that's no
Um,
problem. I used to work for for Deloitte. So each year we have to report every stock we own, like
yeah. Okay.
each single stock we own and what you can do, what you cannot do. So I'm very familiar
That
with that
makes
process.
sense. Good, good. Yeah. As public servants, that's one of the things that they require of us as well. So, um, I'm glad to know. I'm glad to hear that you know about that.
Yep. Yep.
Tammy, do you have questions?
Yeah, thank you. Um, Hey Jay, I'm interested in how you deal with conflict. Even though as a board we tend to get along well, and that's something that's actually very important to us, but life is not without conflict. And so I'd like to have you think of some situation in your past where there was some sort of conflict, like you had a disagreement with your boss or some position of authority, and what was the conflict, and then how did you work through it to come to some form of resolution?
Okay. A lot of my conflicts were in the kind of in our work, in my work. So when when we work with I used to work. I am not CPA, but I work as expert for the CPAs, for the auditors, basically. So we often we come up with some numbers. We challenge the numbers that auditors come have, and we will say, that's not good enough, and what's your basis there? So there's a lot of conflict in that aspect, basically, to arrive at a conclusion that both can be accepted. So that's again usually several rounds of inquiries, the answers, then debates and discussions, and sometimes can be fierce, but mostly very professionally friendly. Basically, we challenge that part. We don't understand that part, and we have a question with that. So how do you explain that? You have some kind of a story, the narrative, we like to listen to and to come up with that. So that's kind of I guess, as ongoing work that happens a lot, and usually, actually the auditors tend to have upper hand. Basically, auditors say we don't sign you off if we don't get a satisfactory answer for that. So that's kind of how a lot of work that happens in my past life. But in terms of my personal, that happens, I guess, as a manager, I have people who report to me, and also I report to the senior management. So that happens a lot in terms of, again, what you have there and what we think they are not. And again, I'm trained as a analytical person, basically come up with some reasonable explanation, then to illustrate, to demonstrate, and to get the buy off from the stakeholders, to recognize that that's the case. So that's kind of again, a lot of my work experience. That's how I approach the problems and solve the problems. So I don't know whether that answer your question, or I know that uh, you as a board has an inherent conflict with the management team, in the sense that you want them what to do and what they want to do, and sometimes it's different, and you have to again come with several rounds of negotiations there. So that's kind of my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah. So thank you, thank you. That's what I was looking for. And I want to, I'm tempted to make a joke about our unruly general manager, but it's a joke. It's actually a joke. We get, we have a great relationship with Jeff Poole, our general manager. We're more than happy with his performance, and so in that sense, that's one of the sort of good things about this position is that particular relationship. There's there's very little conflict there. But yeah, thank you for answering the question. That was good.
Thank you. Dave, do you have any other questions? Dave's disappeared.
Yes, I do. I don't have my camera on because I have a poor connection here right now, but I'm curious as to how your management experience would fit with the operations of the Borrego Water District. And I'm looking at particularly managing physical infrastructure projects, um, planning, budgeting, financial management, and or human resources.
My consulting, I have mostly consulting experience. So I mean, if anything, you can say that sometimes it's not very deep, not very on the ground. So we review the management, we review the management report, and we ask questions, and we challenge the assumptions, and we will have, especially in the risk management, we'll say what's the risk management policies in place, or what's your procedures and the policies in place, and as part of auditing, we will test the control, how effective your control is. That kind of thing. I think that's kind of if you may, that'd be a little bit high level of the management team, but definitely look at the inside of how, look at the key indicators of how effective you are, and what's your turnover rate, and what is your profit margin, and what's the so-called best industry practice, what's the acceptable level of efficiency versus your level of efficiency, and what is so that's kind of from the management perspective, how to manage it, how you
Oops.
better manage your
There he is.
team, your financial organizations there. In terms of management, I guess as part of a consultant, I mostly manage a team of professionals. So again, the consulting company focus very strongly on the efficiency and the effectiveness of each individual. So we'll have a very, very nice tool to monitor each person, like what's your billing rates, what's your billing hours, basically what's your work hours, how much money revenue do you bring into the picture versus the cost, how many hours you work that one. I think that has some relevancy to management of the water district. But meanwhile, the district itself is like a little bit almost like the whole organization, like you mentioned, that has a IT department, has operations, has accounting departments, finance departments. Although it's only has maybe 15 people there, but it has all the elements of the organization. So managing that itself, it's quite interesting and also challenging too. So you have to use some benchmark and try to motivate and manage and reward the employees, especially given that it's in Borrego Springs, to keep the talent and to keep the good people, try to get rid of the bad apples, if you may, and to maintain that thing. I think that's kind of I guess my take on the water district.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Diane.
I think I've asked my questions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mao, this is your chance to ask us any questions you might have.
It looks like as one of you alluded earlier that I guess you guys get along very well with the board. I guess my question is just like you asked me earlier. So to me, that's
Oh,
the board wants to, the district wants to focus on operation, for nothing else. For the short term, wants to be in the money, wants to be not losing the money, of course, and wants to run smoothly. And while the board wants to set the direction and leads the board maybe to take on even some projects that are not so profitable and in the best interest of the community and the big picture, basically. So I was wondering how often in the recent past that the board, differs in opinions of the district, saying, well, we should do more on this one, we should focus on this one, versus what you are trying to do. Did that happen, or how often that happened in the recent past?
anyone want to take that on besides me? We we do the staff comes to us a lot with projects that they're proposing. It is up to us to decide whether to go forward on projects or not. Where we work with the staff on, we work basically pretty closely with the staff on almost all things. We do direct, I mean, we're there to direct the future. Because we're a tiny district and, without a huge budget and without a huge largesse to do our projects, a lot of what we do is find money. Um, and we do plan out future projects along with the staff. They come to us for approval on things they'd like to do. Sometimes sometimes we have to negotiate the outcome, but most of the time, whatever we all come out agreeing on either what the project is or the compromise. I would say, most of our work involves, keeping the district solvent and finding, because we try to keep ratepayer costs in our community equitable, we have to go find other monies to do some of the big projects that we want to do in our infrastructure, if that helps you. Anybody else
So
have
in other
anything to
words,
add?
basically you guys work with the staff at early stage, so there's no surprise.
Yes.
You guys know what's coming and what's not, I guess.
Yeah, we know some of what needs to be done. Sometimes, we get surprised, but there is nothing, nobody has come to us with a gold-plated project. Everyone is familiar with the needs of the community, and we're firmly planted on the ground in terms of what can and can't be accomplished here. So we all work really well together, I would say. Diane, did you want to add to that?
I'd like to add that we have really strong staff at BWD these days. We everybody is good, and we're fortunate that way. We have Jeff to thank to a large extent, and we've just had good people. This is not. I'm sort of trying to remember things, Mr. Mao, that I've read, in newspapers about conflicts between boards and management, and that doesn't happen with us. We trust our general manager and all of the staff. Um, and if you sit in on staff reports, parts of our meetings, I think you can see how good they are. So it's good in that, it's very good in that way, place to be serving. Yeah.
And I think you said, Mr. Mao, that in your work it was trust but verify, and that's kind of our job. Is to make sure that things are what they seem to be, and move along from there. Do you have any other questions? Oh,
One last question. How much,
okay.
in terms of review, let's say financial budgeting, review that, how much detail you guys go into the I guess, examining, or just kind of go to the spreadsheet, or just kind of on ballpark number? How much time you spend on those things?
Well, we're either looking at the next year's budget, or we're auditing. So we have a standing committee that works on those things fairly constantly. We get a report every month from our finance officer. I believe the board pays pretty close attention to how how money is being spent, and where we're at in the budget. And we do have like you said, a risk management group. We have budget and auditing. We have finance. So it's a very it's a large part of what we do.
Okay.
But for, there's, and our job is to make things as possible for the staff to go forward with.
Very good. Thanks so much for
Okay.
the info.
Thank you so much for your interest. We appreciate you talking to us today, and we'll be getting back to you.
Great,
So
great.
thanks for
Thanks.
your
If you
time.
need anything, let me know. Okay. Great,
Thanks,
great.
Dave.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Two good ones in a row.
Yeah, Gina. Yeah,
Amazing,
Gina.
huh? The people that end up in Borrego, just amazing. Huh.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not.
Qualified people find little Borrego. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's the thing that's amazing about Borrego is that the people that come out here are, that move out here have had high level professional lives. And it's always been amazing when I worked at the park how, um, there'd be like retired dentists and retired veterinarians and retired finance officers, and they'd be in the paleo lab, working on fossils. And that was their whole new life or to work in archaeology. And, they came here and took on a totally separate, different hobby. And interest. And I thought that was always so interesting. And, these are like, some are like PhDs. So it's pretty amazing community.
Look at that.
And
Perfect
Gina's
time.
here. Yeah, perfect timing. Hi, Gina.
Good morning.
Morning.
Nice to see you. We are going to ask you a few questions, and then if you have any questions of us, of course, you'll have your chance to do that. And I don't know if you've met everybody, but anyone who hasn't met you will introduce themselves, I'm sure. And I will start off by asking you why you would like to be on the board of directors for the Borrego Water District.
Well, I'm a native Californian, born in San Diego, recreated out in the year.
Oh,
We're not getting your sound, Gina.
I think the wind's playing havoc with the internet today. Gina, do you want to try to call in? Or try again?
Is she also frozen? I think she's
Yeah,
also
she is.
frozen. Okay.
It's a beautiful day outside, but apparently the internet's not agreeing.
Mm.
Wait for her to give it another try. In some ways, meeting in person again can be kind of a relief.
Yes.
All this technology is wonderful when it works.
We'll have to practice freeze framing in person,
That's right.
just so we're used to it.
So you have time to think.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Yeah.
freeze.
So Steve, would you still be able to call in, or do you have to come in person too?
Well, the good news, Kathy, is for the rest of us that all these rules only apply to board members, so I can call in. It's all of you that have to follow the rules.
But we miss your face.
Well, I can still call in if you allow me, so it's up to you if you set up it's all about the board members. If you want to have a virtual meeting for the rest of the public to attend virtually, have at it. It's all about
Ah,
where you five are. That's what the legislature cares about.
Do
you
they
think
care,
there's
Steve,
any? Oh, go ahead.
the general manager? Like, is Jeff
Nope,
required to be in person?
nope, nope. Just you five. Strangely enough, why that is, I don't know, but
we'll drag him in. So, you think the legislature, there's any chance they would change some of the Brown Act rules,
well, they
loosen
did
it a
last
little bit?
year,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of effort to make them similar to what we have today. And at the end of the day, they weren't having it. So they put together these rules, but they're really stringent, and we can talk about that when we
Okay.
get to this item. But it's almost awkward, the ones that they put in place. They're difficult to comply with. So
Bureaucratics.
Our sponsor group, which is a county thing, Steve, has been meeting in person for the last couple of months. I think the county lawyers have told them you have to do it now. So I feel like we've been living on borrowed time here at BWD.
Yeah.
yeah, the legislature, the governor gave you till the end of February, but that's when the reprieve ends. So
Yeah. I thought we'd be allowed to do hybrid meetings, but that's okay. We can socially distance ourselves if we need to.
Maybe we'll meet at the library. We can chat about that. There's a lot more space
That's
there.
good. It's a good idea. Gina, are you back with us? I see your name on the board. I don't see you're muted. Still having technical difficulties, maybe.
Esmeralda is going to text her the call-in number. That was our latest.
She's on the board here just now. Oh, there
Okay.
she is. Are you
I'm
here?
sorry.
You know
I'm
what?
here.
You're not the only one. Apparently the internet has been tricky today. So, well, can you hear us? Oh dear.
I see the little green lines moving, which means she's
Yeah,
talking
she's
to us, but we
talking.
hear
I
her.
can't hear her.
Shoot.
She's trying.
Maybe she can drive down to the office and talk at your desk, Jeff.
Yeah. And then Gina, Esmeralda did send you a call-in number via text. Oh, she just left, so maybe she'll call back then.
Maybe she just saw her text.
So Jeff, have you been able to verify that everybody's a resident so we don't have to worry about that part?
I asked them all. They all said yes. Honestly, I was a little worried about Jay's answer, but he confirmed that he is a registered voter with a domicile in Borrego. Some of his comments about one kid still in school over there, I will confirm that with him, but it was a part of, the email chain early in this process. So.
Yeah.
Well, we've certainly had some pretty high level folks. I don't
Wow.
necessarily think we've seen people that have been down in the trenches, but pretty impressed by the work experience that both of those last two have had.
Yeah, big city stuff. Yeah, the wind's blowing now, so that is not a good sign for the internet.
Hey, Madam President, I have a way to kill a little bit of time. We can start doing some staff reports.
Okay.
I'll give you mine about the ISA Padilla money.
Okay.
As part of the omnibus bill that was signed by the legislature just before Christmas, out of that was a 1.7 trillion. BWD's $3.4 million was included in the congressional direct appropriations. So the money is there. Now, this is an 80% grant, so we have to come up with 20% of the 4.3, I believe, was the total cost estimate. So Jessica's working on some updated cash flows for us to come up with 800,000, but that is much better than us having to come up with the $4.3 million needed to build the projects.
Right.
Now, this one's really unique because this is a congressional direct appropriation, and typically federal dollars get passed to state clearinghouses for grant administration. So various state agencies ultimately, in most cases, implement federal funds, but this is coming straight from the federal government uh, via the EPA. And I spoke to Anna, our delegate back there in Washington, D.C. this morning, our legislative advocate, there we go, back in D.C. this morning. She'll be eligible and available for our board meeting 2 weeks from today. But in summary, she said we should be hearing from EPA in the very near future, and the funding typically takes a long time. But in this case, the federal government's trying to get the funding quickly, so their plan is to try to get it out in the second quarter of this year. So we actually might get the money during our current fiscal year.
Okay.
So really good news.
Does the state take a cut too if it goes through them?
Typically, the state would have administrative costs. That's all part of the packages, but here, in this case, no, straight from.
Huh.
But it doesn't come out of our grant. The state administrative costs are kind of typically covered in like the total appropriation. Not the total appropriation, 90% of that gets allocated to the grants, and then project administration costs get retained by the state. But it's kind of part of the bill language and the grant language there up in the very beginning. That,
So the Fed,
appropriated 94 millions for grants, and the state keeps 6 million for grant administration. So they get
so the feds pay the state to administer the money.
right.
Okay. I think
Cool. Okay, so
Gina's,
that was my staff report.
thank you. That was short and sweet. Gina, I think you're back with us, are you?
I am back by phone. My
Okay,
apologies.
that's okay. You know what? The wind is blowing, and that's not good news for anybody on the internet. So,
My internet was out at home, so I'm sitting outside here at the library, and the library internet was working right until this interview started.
I was going to suggest if all else fails to go to the BWD office and we could talk to you from Jeff's desk. But the call is great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect.
We were only on the first question, and that was why you're interested in serving on the board.
Yeah. Well, and I moved to Borrego Springs in 2015, became a full-time resident then. I worked for state parks, and Kathy, as you know, when you retired, I sat on the advisory committee for the Sustainable Groundwater Plan as the park representative. And I started, learning about the various issues in front of the water district and in front of the community related to groundwater sustainability. And I just, I have an active interest in it. I'm retired now from the state, and so I have the time and effort, the time and the ability to put into it. And I think I just bring a different mix of experiences to the group. And I'm more of a collaborative, common sense kind of person, and so I think that meshes well with the current board and the current approach moving forward with the stipulated agreement and the GSP. So.
Thanks. Tammy.
Hi, Gina. I'm Tammy Baker. I've been on the board for like 2 years now, about halfway through my first term. So I'm going to ask about your state parks experience. And the state park has the reputation, perhaps not totally deserved, for being slow moving and political. And I'm curious what you found to be effective in getting things done in your time working within the state parks.
Well, I would definitely say persistence and staying in touch, and I think with everything it's having those good working relationships and being able to meet with people and get things done meet if you can face to face or via, Zoom or whatever possibilities there are. And at some point, you probably will need to adjust your expectations a little bit on how quickly state parks can move through anything. Unfortunately, a lot of our districts, and I've worked in 2 separate districts in the state, are dependent on staff in our headquarters office who are serving the whole state, which causes a challenge. So it's making sure you have the relationships, and then possibly bringing in some outside partners that may be able to help join in. Like, for example, here the Borrego Foundation, or if need be, and if time is really part of it, maybe bringing in some state elected officials to kind of get your project to the top of the pile, so to speak. And I'm speaking candidly, since I am now retired.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
Mhm.
It's wonderful to be able to say, to be candid, isn't it? Sometimes it still gets us in trouble. So,
It does. So,
all right, Dave, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Good morning, Gina. How are you?
good. Thanks, Dave. Good morning.
Hey, I'm going to ask you the same question that I have asked of the others. Um, can you tell me how your managed experience fits with the operations of the Borrego Water District? And I'm thinking specifically of physical infrastructure projects, budgeting, financial management, and/or human resource issues.
Right. Well, certainly, I've been a manager. I managed the San Diego Coast District for state parks, as well as this district, the Colorado Desert District, in which Borrego is. So I was responsible for all aspects of running those areas. So that included budgets, and I was allocated an annual budget and had to manage that, including staff, hiring, salaries, also all of our infrastructure. And on the coast there were three campgrounds with on the beach with aging facilities, or facilities that were aged by salt air very quickly. Managing a fleet of vehicles. So managing all the infrastructure as well, obviously with a team of talented people and staff. So I wouldn't say that I did it on my own. Let's see, what else was there? And motivating people to be able to get the work done. My work at Caltrans was in environmental policy and environmental approvals for linear projects, billion-dollar transportation facilities in various parts of the state. So I've been involved with compliance in implementing mitigation and restoration projects associated with transportation facilities and corridors. So I've kind of touched all aspects of what I think the water district does, from operations to maintenance to facilities, and even the infrastructure and pipes, to having to manage a staff of over 300 individuals, and doing the hiring, and I think completing everything. So I think I covered everything you asked, Dave, but let me know if you want me to fill in anything else.
Oh, you certainly did. Thank you very much.
Sure.
We're not hearing you, Kathy, if you are speaking.
Sorry about that. Diane, it's your turn.
Okay, thanks. So I think I have an impression that you've been involved in outreach, both at Caltrans and Can you tell us about what your experience is with, well, actually both with community outreach and with working with with other state agencies?
Yeah, yeah, certainly for all of our projects that I worked on in Caltrans, we always had community meetings for those projects, and going out to the communities, getting their input on those projects to allow changes. So I had extensive experience doing that in my time with Caltrans. With state parks, obviously, um, working with nonprofit partners, working with um, a robust volunteer group who technically the state considers our employees, but they're their own community group. Um, and just reaching out to others in the community. I think the example I'll provide is in 2019 when we knew there was going to be another big wildflower season, which it seems like there will be another one this year too. Um, I worked with not only internally with our uh, headquarters and our communications office to get press out and everything else out. We worked collaboratively with the Borrego Village Association and other community groups and really brought everyone together to try to ensure that we could manage the public's expectations when they came to see wildflowers in 2019, and we didn't end up with, the challenges and the problems we had in 2017 with running out of food, no restroom facilities, just a line up the grade and that sort of thing. So it was coming together with various community organizations and ensuring that we are all working together and providing, weekly information and weekly meetings. I think that really helped. And then my other experience is working with other governmental agencies, whether it's the Water Board, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Army Corps of Engineers, Coastal Commission. We ran the gamut, for state parks because any project we did on our property required permits from all of those agencies. And in one of my jobs at Caltrans for, I think about 3 or 4 years was Caltrans funded positions at the resource and regulatory agencies, and I was I managed that program and ensured that we had regular meetings with those agencies and talked about projects and, just ensured that we could get our projects completed in a timely fashion. And as I'd like to say, for those positions, it wasn't buying approvals, it was building in predictability. And I'm sure as you all know, if a project is delayed for 2 years, construction costs, all the costs go up. So if there's a way to be able to build in that predictability and deliver on time and on schedule, it's a much better project and you stay within budget. So I think that's all I
Thank
have
you.
on that one.
Thank you. Boy, building in predictability would be wonderful. We
Yeah.
need a string telephone up to Department of Water Resources these days.
Great. Well, Gina, I wanted to ask you to describe your understanding of the function of the district board, the water district board as a whole.
Okay. Yeah, the water district is like its own, it's a self-governing body here in Borrego, and it's one of the only ones that's here, and it has a lot of responsibility. I mean, between assisting the community, uh, actually providing water to the community, and a portion of sewage treatment to the community as well, is the primary function. But managing grants, setting rates for the ratepayers, figuring out how you're going to pay for everything that needs to happen, whether it's the aging infrastructure replacement projects or the stipulated agreement and the sustainability plan. So I think it's an important function. And then as a board, an active board, and I've sat on other boards like the San Diego River Conservancy, Lodi Planning Commission. I know that the board is, technically elected officials. They function under the Brown Act. There's the financial disclosures, which I'm familiar with. I've been doing those for years in my state job, and then as being on other boards, and along with the ethics requirement. So basically, the board has a very important part or function in the community. So that's kind of the way I kind of read what the board does. And obviously, the board has its own policies and regulations, but is also regulated by the state, the federal government, and the county. So that adds another layer of complexity in ensuring that you're meeting all those requirements.
Great,
And I
thank
think
you.
that's the end of my answer. Mhm.
Thanks, Gina. Tammy, back to you.
Hey, Gina. So I'm interested in conflict and how you work through conflict. I mean, as a board, we enjoy and pride ourselves that we get along, and so it's not a particular issue for us. But life is not without conflict, and so I'd ask you to think to a time in the past where you were in a situation where there was conflict, like you had a disagreement with your boss or a disagreement with a person of authority or something. If you think back to that situation, what happened and how did you resolve that conflict?
Right. Yeah, I certainly have had a lot of conflict in my career and in my life. And I think the approach that I've always taken is to try to do mutual goal setting, and that's worked recently. Most recently, we were renegotiating an agreement with a community college that was operating a facility for us at state parks. And I think the thing that really kind of got us, because there were things that both sides said, oh boy, these are our challenges. But what we did to start off the conversation is look at mutual goal setting and identify what we both wanted from this agreement and what benefits we wanted the community to see. And that set everyone up on a good footing. And since we had those mutual goals that we were focused on, it helped us get through some of the more tenacious conversations to have, because we were always knowing that we were, functioning, trying to get to those goals that we both wanted. And so I think it's seeing, other people's points of view, seeing your own points of view, and identifying areas where there's leeway and there's compromise that can be made. And so the outcome was that we have worked through the agreement, and it is going to be another, I think it's going to be for a 25-year term. So we got through all the sections easily and just took them point by point. And when we had the contentious issues, we were able to work through them because of the mutual outcome and the benefit that we saw at the end. So,
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Your turn, Dave.
Gina, I know that you were, as you mentioned, actually, that you were part of the original advisory committee for the groundwater sustainability plan. And as you know, that the pumpers in the valley came together to create a stipulated agreement, which is now a stipulated judgment, and it created the Water Master Board. What is your understanding of the responsibilities of the Water Master Board?
That's a good question. Well, the Water Master Board is directed to implement the stipulated judgment. And I know that there's also a groundwater sustainability plan associated with that. So the Water Master Board is supposed to be putting everything forward, all the different aspects of the stipulated judgment moving forward. And I know that Dave, you're the representative for the Water Master Board. So that's my understanding at this point, and I must admit I need to jump into that a little more completely to get a little more information.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Diane, it's your turn.
Thank you. Can you tell us about your CEQA experience, Gina, please?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think my entire career, I have been working with the California Environmental Quality Act. While I was at Caltrans, obviously, every project that we did was subject to CEQA, and because federal dollars were involved, it was subject to NEPA as well, the National Environmental Policy Act. So I have extensive experience with CEQA, and while one of my later jobs at Caltrans was the manager of what Caltrans called the Standard Environmental Reference, which was basically the environmental policy and procedures document for all of Caltrans statewide. And so anytime there were changes to CEQA or any other laws, we would be implementing policy associated with that would be carried out throughout the state. And then most recently at state parks, I obviously sign all of our CEQA approvals throughout the district for any of the projects that we're doing. So I have a good working knowledge of CEQA and then the associated laws like the Endangered Species Act, the state and federal Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, which is the federal side, and then obviously the waste discharge requirements and other things from the regional boards. So I have a good working knowledge of CEQA.
For better or worse, huh?
Yeah.
But you caught my ear. So you've worked with the regional water board or boards. That
Yeah. I mean, anytime we needed permits basically for any of the projects that we did that were near waters or wetlands. And then during my time on the San Diego River Conservancy, the regional board also had a seat on that board. So worked with them in the capacity as a regulator and then also as a board member. So.
Okay, thank you. And obviously
Mm-hmm.
your knowledge is current. You've been dealing with CEQA until a couple of weeks ago, I guess, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, December 16th was I retired on December 30th, but my last day of work was really December 16th. So yes, recent CEQA knowledge, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So Gina, I see that you have been involved in a couple of organizations here in Borrego. You want to talk to us a little bit about your activities outside of state parks, how you've been involved in the community?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a member of the Seroptimus International Borrego Springs, and that's a group that helps empowers women and girls. And the aspects I've been involved with were the scholarship program, where we provided scholarships to high school girls going on to college, to the tune of I think that $10,000 to $15,000 a year commitment. So it entails some fundraising and getting out in the community that way as well. And then Also working on the Dream It, See It committee and looking for women who are trying to get back to education after having children or having children and trying to get back. So working in those two functions, but also working in the community on the fundraising aspects of that. I've been going down to the Circle on Friday, the farmers market representing Sir Optimus, and getting that message across. And then I am a member of the American Legion Auxiliary, which supports veterans and the community. And most recently, I haven't, since I was in San Diego for the bulk of it, I haven't been active in doing fundraising, which in a lot of ways for the community is things like pancake breakfast that the American Legion has out at the post that raises funds for school groups, whether it's sports teams or the kids that are going to Washington, D.C. on a trip, or actually even the Interact Club and other clubs within the schools. So that's been the bulk of my community activity. Obviously, I go to community meetings. I love the new library where I'm sitting right now and stay active that way. And my husband and I also recently have, we're not part of the SCP committee necessarily, but we've certainly been following that and have attended court once to speak out against the placement of SCPs in the community as well. So we've both been active since we've been to moved to Borrego Springs.
Thank you. Tammy, do you have any other questions?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Dave?
No, I do
Diane?
not.
Okay. Diane, any other questions?
Thanks.
Okay. And Gina, I have one last question, and that's one I've asked everyone is, I'm sure you're aware that we that we meet 2 times a month, second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, and we often, or we've tried to go dark at least 1 month of the summer, usually August. So, and our attorney has just recently started to tell us about the COVID exemptions ending, and that we will be meeting essentially in person. So I want to make sure that you're aware and how and if that's going to be an issue for you to meet twice a month for most of the year.
No, not at all. I'm aware of that commitment, and despite the technical difficulties I had this morning,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to meet that commitment. So
Okay.
no problem on our end, on my end.
Okay. And do you have any questions of us?
Where do you guys see? I mean, I guess that's the one question I have is what do you see as some of the big challenges that you have moving forward in the next 2 years or so?
Looking ahead, I would say, obviously, dealing with the same things that you dealt with in state parks, we have aging infrastructure, and we are going to be constantly looking for ways, namely money, to continue to replace pipe and, eventually maybe some wells, to keep the system in good shape and to provide water to our customers. And we also feel that some responsibility, and I'm speaking for myself here, anybody else can chime in, but we feel some responsibility for the community as the water situation changes, that we acquire water to keep providing potable water to our customers, and also maybe to find ways to transition people out of away from jobs that do use a lot of water into maybe some other ways. We're looking at landscape conservation through landscaping. So we've got a few things ahead. I think our challenges are the same in a lot of ways as the water master is to um, uh, look to the future to help this community become um, sustainable in all possible ways. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to add to that?
Well, I do,
So I guess,
Kathy.
okay, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I mean, you touched on it. We are at some point going to have to purchase baseline pumping allocation to continue to serve our customers. And I think that two of the challenges are to, one, find willing sellers, and two, to find the money available to beginning to purchase it. I mean, we kind of have some time to do that, but I think it should always be in the forefront of our minds, who's willing to sell and how much is it going to cost and how much we're going to pay for it, or how we are going to pay for it.
I hope that
I
gives you
guess,
some clue.
Yes.
Diane, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I'll just add a bit, which is that I'm most concerned these days with keeping the quality of our aquifer um, usable, potable, so that we don't have to get into expensive water treatment. Um, so water quality, and and that doesn't always mesh well with other members of the water master board who don't really want to spend money on things that they think maybe aren't necessary, whether it's water quality or studies, whatever. Um, so being effective members of the water master board is it's a new challenge for the BWD. We're still figuring it out, I think.
Oh, Tammy.
Great.
Tammy
This
has
is
an ad.
yeah, yeah. It's his best question so far. Um, I would add on. I certainly agree with water quality. I'd just add on to all those things. The other area I think is a challenge for us is supporting development and growth here in Borrego, whether it's to sort of when we have these programs for like small homeowners that want to develop and they need this BPA to be able to do that. We have a pilot. Well, now it's a program in place to do that. But if you just take a step back, that part of our responsibility as a public agency is to support development as the developers meet all the other criteria. I think that will be continue to be a challenge for us.
So you can see that if you're the one selected to be on the board, you have your work cut out for you. So,
Oh, for sure.
um,
No, it's good.
Gina, we thank you for your time and your interest. We're very pleased that you're a candidate for the board of directors, and we will talk to you sometime soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate your patience with my technology issues.
It's Borrego. We get that. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
All
Thank you,
right.
Gina.
Bye.
Bye. All right, we got one candidate left, John Peterson.
Yep, yep. Wow, another good one.
Yeah, yeah. This isn't going to be easy. Um,
Can't lose. Yep.
I don't know if John's going to have the same issue, but we can give him a try. Here he is, I think.
Wow, look at that. Ooh, we are good.
Yeah. Now we'll see if his internet works, then I'll do that, and otherwise we'll have him call in. Hi, John. Are you
Hi
with
there.
us? Good.
I am.
I I can. You're a little light on the voice. If you want to turn up your microphone a little bit.
How
Hi,
about if I talk a little bit louder? Is that okay?
that works. Thank you. Um,
Okay.
hi, John. Thanks for your patience in waiting your turn, and also we so appreciate your interest in being a member of the board of directors. So we're all going to be asking you a couple questions, taking turns, and then we'll give you a chance to ask us any questions you might have at the end. So I'm going to start off with the usual question of why you would like to become a member of the board of directors for the water district.
Basically, probably the answer is in two different sections. Number one, as you probably know, I am passionate about working and saving and protecting Borrego Valley groundwater basin. I've been working within the basin since 1981, and I fought many battles in Borrego over that 40-year period of time. And I still am engaged and passionate about saving that groundwater resource. This comes to my professional background and training, and this is something of which I take very close to the heart. Number two is I like to be a member of a winning team. I really do think that the board and management of the Borrego Water District are doing a great job. We've seen such an improvement over the last 15 years with a previous board and management that the board was within 3 months of going bankrupt. It's just incredible what the community and all you guys have done to help and support the community because the Borrego Water District is actually imperative to the future health and viability of Borrego Springs. So being part of a team is also one of the primary reasons I threw my hat into the ring.
Thanks. Ms. Baker.
Hey, John. Thanks for calling us the A team. That's very nice of you. Um, we all know your background and experience as a hydrologist and 40 years that you mentioned. But in the water district, we need to work with outside consultants for much of what we do. Pretty much everyone goes to an outside auditor to have their books audited because you want that independent review. Um, and we have our own technical advisor for hydrology. And we need to do that because we need to have sort of that independent resource to refer to should we ever result in sort of disagreements or perhaps litigation. We always have to have these outside parties who have their own expertise and business insurance and all those things that we rely on for the decisions we make. So to that extent, you as a hydrologist with a lot of experience, particularly even in Borrego, we can't turn to you as a board member to be our hydrology expert. We will always need to work with an outside firm. And I want to know how you feel about that.
Uh, from a I don't have any problem with that at all. From a science standpoint, it's a collaborative effort. I see myself, if I was to be chosen on the board, is to provide the questions that we need to have answered. It's not my job to answer the questions. Rather, it's my background and experience in saying is, well, what about this? And shouldn't we be looking at that? Science is a joint collaborative effort, and my task is to in it's proper to have the proper questions. I don't have all the answers by any means, but I know enough to be able to say that we really need to be looking into this because of that.
Thank you, John.
A minute till I get the dog put away.
Dave.
John, good morning. How are you? Good morning. Good. Hey, I'm going to ask you the same question that I've asked the others. Um, what is your management experience with relation to the operations of BWD. And I'm thinking about things like physical infrastructure projects, um, planning, budgeting, fiscal management, and human resources.
In the terms of the engineering, I have background experience being with the County of San Diego and the engineering stuff. I don't have any background in the financial, things. I should not be considered an expert in that particular area. In the terms of management, particularly of people and things like this, when I was at the county, I was not only the hydrogeologist for the county, but I got kind of complacent in that job. I kind of started volunteering for other work. And pretty soon I had a staff of 24 people, direct answers to me. So I've got a lot of experience in the terms of working with people. Uh, but I'm not a civil engineer, and I really don't have any expertise in the financial rate structure and things like that. So you should not be looking to me in that area as an expert.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Diane, your turn.
Okay. John, I think I saw something about you being involved in CEQA a fair amount in your resume. Can you tell us more about that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, when I was at the county, I was involved as obviously in CEQA from a groundwater standpoint. But in addition to that, when I got complacent in my groundwater job and was looking more things to do, I'm the type of person that doesn't like being bored. I ended up being the CEQA regulatory manager. The staff that I had, we had 24 people, and my analysts, we under my division, we managed all CEQA review for all private projects in the county of San Diego. So for the last 4 or 5 years I was with the county, I was not only the hydrogeologist, but I was also called the CEQA regulatory manager, where it was my job in to control all the different phases of the environmental review for all private projects, 100% of all private projects in the county of San Diego. So I feel like I have a fairly extensive background within CEQA. Probably not been that updated that much in the last 4 or 5 years, but I still keep up to date on CEQA.
And that was with the County Planning and Development Services that you did that CEQA work, or was it more agencies in the county?
No, the Department of Planning, and we call it that time Planning and Land Use.
Right.
Uh, our job was to provide land use services and review for all projects, private and public. My particular section dealt with all private projects. So if you had a development activity, what we would call a discretionary action, that all fell under my division, and I was the lead analyst on a whole bunch of big projects. I had the big ones, but my staff had all the other land use development actions. I was meeting with county councils on a regular basis and public hearings, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
So, John, just so you can say it out loud to all of us, could you describe your understanding of the function of the district, the Borrego Water District Board as a whole?
I've worked with the district now for 40 years, and that goes back to the days of John Sasso and Sam Fortner and all. Uh, and the Borrego Water District is the service provider for domestic water for the community. Yes, we have outlying areas that do not have access to Borrego Water District water, but the Borrego Water District is the purveyor for potable water for the vast majority of our community. And in addition to that, they also run the wastewater treatment facility, which is down there below Rams Hill, which provides another big function. So the all the regulatory aspects of Title 22 in terms of water quality. It all falls under the auspices of the BWD. Uh, the interrelationship then also between BWD and the Water Master Board, that's another whole different area, one of which I really don't feel very confident. I don't know a lot about the inner working and relationship between BWD and the Water Master Board. That has been an interesting development, but the BWD plays a vital, important element within the infrastructure and system of Borrego Springs.
Thanks, John. Tammy, your turn.
Quick to the unmute here. So John, as you know, as a board, we tend to get along. I think that's one of the reasons you call us in part an A team. But life is not without conflicts. And so can you give us an example, if you think back over your years, of a time when you were involved in a conflict, maybe it's with a boss or the person of authority, or just some example where you were in a situation that there was conflict, and it can explain to us how you were able to resolve that conflict.
Interesting question. We can all agree to disagree. The key factor is to be able to work together jointly. And it's not as if I'm right or the other person's wrong or the other way around, but let's sit down around a table and let's have a cup of coffee and let's talk things out and talk things through. Generally speaking, with a degree of communication, you can pretty much work through most of everything. And that applies to our personal lives as well as our professional lives. Uh, uh, it's a matter of communication, cooperating, and also the primary thing is treat people the way you would like to be treated. I live my life that way. As long as you treat people the way you'd like to be treated, you can pretty much move and work through pretty much anything.
Thank you.
Mr. Duncan?
Yeah, hi, John. As you know, that the BWD is a party to the stipulated judgment, and a Water Master Board has been formed. What is your understanding of the role of the Water Master Board?
Well, the Water Master Board is the arm of the court, with the adjudication. And again, this is my understanding, and I know, Dave, you got a heck of a lot, and most of you have a lot better understanding than I do. So, but what I know about it is with the stipulated judgment that this particular issue lies with the court, and the court has basically allocated or given the Water Master Board the control and right to be able to manage our groundwater basin, to bring it into groundwater sustainability within the 20 years and all the regulations and things like this. So the Water Master Board is the purveyor. So if you look at the situation, you've got the judge. The judge is the person who has essentially the control. They've allocated the actions and the activities to the Water Master Board. The Water Master Board has their different 5 directors on it, from recreational, from government, from BWD, from agricultural, and those particular representatives then use their different groups, the environmental working group, the TAC, and things like this, to be able to gather information and comply with that stipulated judgment that falls under the auspices of the judge, which has allocated day-to-day operations to the Water Master Board.
Thank you, John.
Diane?
Yeah, thank you, John. You've kind of addressed this, but maybe you could go into it more. What do you see as the biggest challenges for BWD, for us, not the valley in general, but for BWD in the next couple of years?
Interesting. That really applies in a couple of different areas, and I could have a long answer to that because you've got the CIP program, and I applaud you all and Jeff Poole and all. You guys are making great progress on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan. Because one of the biggest thing we need to do in the community is have a system that we have good wells, good pumps, good pipelines, good reservoirs, and that is talking about a lot of money. And with the Prop 68 money and these different funding sources that I applaud you all on the terms of getting, one of the main things is getting adequate plumbing and infrastructure in the system. That is, and you guys have made more improvements on that in the last year than we've done out in Borrego for decades. That's really good. Uh, and then we have that's the infrastructure, that's the CIP stuff. But you also have the interrelationship that the BWD is in the middle of the residents because they have had increasing water bills and people are not happy about paying more for water. So you've got the infrastructure, you have the financial stuff. The financial stuff, is making sure that we can keep the doors open and pay for salaries and all that type of stuff. So that's really big. And then we also have the technical stuff. Yes, we have the Water Master Board and the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, and they're working on a lot of the technical stuff. But it's also important that BWD protect their interests, and that's the reason why Dave's, and greatly so, is the chairperson of the Water Master Board. But there is challenges from a technical standpoint, and I'm quite concerned about the water quality issues in the north end of the valley. We've talked about that at the town hall meeting. I'm also concerned about the overdraft. It's frequently not known that the biggest overdraft we have by far is not in the north end of the valley. It's the wells in the south end of the valley, and we've not really dealt with that either. So you got technical parts, but that's interrelated with and asking the questions of the Water Master Board to make sure that our issues, concerns are adequately addressed within the great technical work that's being done.
Okay.
Thank you. I lost my connection for part of that time, but I won't make you repeat it. Thank you, John.
Okay. Um, John, a couple of things I just wanted to, I know you've been active in a number of ways in the community, and I thought maybe you'd like to talk about that.
I appreciate that. I've been active with the Enzo Borrego Foundation. The ABF Enzo Borrego Foundation is the park partners. We're the organization that we work hand in hand and conjunctively with the state park, and that's really important part of our community. I was on that board for 22 years, past president. I've recently resigned to free up additional time for other interests. I'm also on the sponsor group and the vice chair of the sponsor group, which is the county appointed land use advisor to Desmond with the supervisor with the county. I'm also the chairperson of the Water and Land Use Subcommittee. We advise and go back to the sponsor group, and we've been dealing with a lot of water related issues there. I'm also on the environmental working group with the Water Master Board, and that's the big things. The little stuff being the garden committee and things like that. I leave the minor stuff out.
Thanks. Tammy, any other questions?
Yeah, why did you leave the county way back in 2003?
Uh, uh, I'd been working there for 22 years. I had basically three jobs. I managed more people than anybody else in the county. I was still the county groundwater geologist, and I thought I was due for a promotion, considering the fact I was working 60-hour work weeks and things like this. And I went in and asked my boss, who was getting a promotion at that time, about a promotion. He said he might consider it in a couple of years. So I went into the meeting thinking I was going to get a promotion, and I walked out of the meeting having quit my job.
Hmm.
Because I'm this type of person. If I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, there's a great big world out there, and I can just move on.
Oh, sorry to hear that's why it ended, but yeah, thanks for the answer.
Yeah, but it was a good change for me too. It got me working as a private consultant and things like this. A step, is opening a door to other opportunities. You know,
Hmm.
so I never look back at my life saying is that was bad or good. It's only an opportunity to learn and grow and develop into other uh, uh, arenas.
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking there. Thanks, John.
Mr. Duncan, do you have any other questions for John?
No, I do not.
And looks like I lost Diane again. Okay. I'll come back to Diane in a minute. John, this is a question I have asked all the candidates, and I just wanted to bring it by you as well, that I know you're aware that we meet um, twice a month on the second and fourth Tuesdays. We try to go dark at least 1 month of the summer. That hasn't been possible in recent times, but we're trying to get to there. And our attorney has just recently is today talking to us about how our ability to do virtual meetings is coming to an end with the declared end of the COVID emergency. So we're going to be meeting in person. And so I wanted to make sure that you understand that obligation, and how are you with, being available for meetings for at least, 10 or 11 months of the year?
I am. I have one home. This is here in Borrego. I'm not. We all travel. I'm scheduling a trip this coming summer. I want to go on an RV trip, on the West Coast, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some individual times I might not be in the valley, but I have one home. Uh, we've been at the sponsor group going through the same discussion that you've been having with your council in regard to in person meetings, and we've made that transition now already with the sponsor group. So no, that's fine. This is where I live. We all travel. We all have the opportunity to take vacations, but
Right.
I don't see that as being a problem.
Okay. Thanks for checking in with that. And Tammy, do you have any other questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, John, this is your chance to ask any questions you might have of us.
I do. This is filling Paul's seat, uh, and I'm not too sure how your guys' seats work. Okay, oftentimes I know Tammy, when you ran, you occupied a seat, and I don't know how those rotate. I mean, with Paul resigning and me filling with a person filling that seat, whoever you select, is that for 1 year or 2 years, or is then that person or up for election? I don't know anything about how the seats rotate and how this individual seat that you're working now to fill is going to be populated and uh, what, et cetera, et cetera.
Does anyone, Jeff, do you want to tackle that, or basically, I believe it's a 4-year term because
Yeah.
Paul had to resign at the end of, actually he was filling a position that was the rest of a term, the remainder of a term, and he was, due to run again. So because he did not run, and because we had more seats available at the election than were being filled, we have to fill this one by appointment, and so it would be a 4-year term.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you are correct, Kathy. This term would have begun in December.
Right.
So if you were appointed, then you would fulfill that 4-year term. The terms the board members alternate. Like there are two directors which come up for election 1 year, and then 3 come up the next cycle. So it's not everybody's up for election at the same time. They're staggered.
Right. So Dave and
Thank you
I,
for that.
just re-upped. So this would be the third seat that's a 4-year term.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Now, just to add also, it's important that any person on a 5-member board understand that they have one voice, they have one vote, and they're part of the team. And I just wanted to, uh, uh, it's vital that all board members work together, but they have to understand that they're only one vote, and working with management and with Jeff Poole at the Water District is very important because Jeff, in my mind, Jeff works for the chairperson of the board, and individual board members answer to the chairperson, to Kathy, and the directions come from Kathy to Jeff because it's very important in an organization so that Jeff doesn't have too many bosses, particularly to make sure everybody's on the same page and working together. The one vote, and the vote of the board through Kathy to Jeff is the way I interpret that, how it should work. And I would be interested if anybody had any comments on that.
We work collaboratively for the most part. I think because we have a wonderfully strong staff at BWD and a very congenial board, yes, direction comes from the board to Jeff after a decision is made, and but generally speaking, we all work as a team.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, John, for your interest and your time this morning and your patience for taking your turn with us. And we'll be speaking with you soon.
Okay, I'll go ahead and drop off, or
You're welcome to stay if you like. We're going to be talking about the candidates and maybe coming to a decision today. And then continue with the rest of our meeting. So you're welcome to stay if you wish. Of course, you're a member of the public right now.
Thank you.
Okay. So board, where do we start? The question I have in my mind is, we're aware of what our individual strong points are on the board. And I'm wondering for this fifth seat, this last seat, what do we most need as, on the board are there any gaps that we need to fill? And, what would that look like? And maybe that's one way to approach this. Otherwise, we have some extremely qualified people here. and they've all given us a lot of good information. And I think for me, part of the decision, I mean, I have two trains of thought. One is, yeah, is there a gap that one of these candidates could fill? And or two, the way I've always handled hiring in my work experience is to go for the person, basically a good quality person can learn anything. So I always tend to go for people persons, because it's a lot of it's it's not necessarily easy to learn to to get along and be a people person and to do outreach and to be collaborative, but it is, you know you can, once if they have that skill, then they can be trained to do anything else. So with that, um, I open it to any thoughts or discussion.
Kathy, I'll just say that I'm Diana's here now. I don't
Okay,
know if I'm caller 01 or whatever, but I
you're
gave
caller
up on
4.
my.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank,
that's
thank
who
you.
caller
Thank you
4
for
is.
coming back. I
Okay,
forgot to return to you to ask you if you had any other questions, but I'm glad you're back now. Um,
yeah, thank
so
you.
I don't know how much of the end of John's interview you heard, but I think
I heard of their. Yeah,
he had some
I think I
questions
got
of
about
us.
that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Madam President, would it be helpful for me to just share one or two little items for the board's background?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Um, and I hope this isn't out of place, but I have other clients that have faced similar situations with lots of qualified candidates for board positions, and several of them have actually, and you don't need to do this today, have actually, after selecting one of the candidates, um, thought about and actually formed a citizens advisory committee so as not to lose the expertise of other qualified people in your community that want to participate and assist BWD. And I've seen that work in different ways, and it's not on the agenda today, so it's not something that you could consider today in the forefront, but in the background, might be something the board might want to consider is, um, although you have a hard decision, there's always the opportunity, if you so choose, to try to take as much advantage as possible of people who are ready, willing, and able to help, especially those with particularized expertise, to the board in another way, even if they aren't selected to fill the board seat. So I just wanted to share that with the board. Thank you.
Doesn't make our original choice any easier, but thank you. Um, John, or Dave, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, in order to kind of move this along, we certainly have a group of candidates that are all qualified. Some may be overqualified, and I don't know what the baseball analogy is when you have someone on the bench that can field multiple positions. Can help me with an appropriate metaphor, but I do think that
It's
Gina
called the utility.
provides a
It's called a
unique.
utility player.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what just left my brain. But I think that Gina actually has a unique skill set which fits the needs of the district to a T. I mean, she certainly has experience with physical infrastructure projects, planning and budgeting and financial management, and as well as human resource issues, which were three things that were really critical for me to receive comment on from the candidates. So maybe it's too early to do so, but I would move to nominate Gina Moran to fill our open seat.
That's that certainly is jumping in, but the motion is made. Does anyone want to second that?
I'll second Diane.
Okay, and that's where we can open it to discussion. I will say that Gina gave the most complete answers in our interview, I think. I have a real, even though I know Gina from my experience at state parks, she gave a much more complete picture of her knowledge than even I knew. I I I did feel that our first two candidates were extremely qualified, and Mr. Mao made me think of Lyle and how much, I mean, how analytical and risk management and everything that he talked about. I thought, wow, Lyle the second. If that would be what we needed. But I also felt that the first two candidates did not have as much grounding in the community as would be helpful on the board of directors, even though I don't know if that's a necessary qualification, but it, you know, they are big fish in a little pond here. And I wondered if that would be something they would actually enjoy doing. And I mean, I think this is a tough decision, but and I would entertain any other comments with the motion on the floor for Gina. I still want to hear any other comments that anybody has. Diane or
I'll go
Tammy?
next.
Okay, Tammy.
So this is, boy, I hate doing this because everybody would be a fantastic member. So it's
I
hard
know
to
this is
say,
terrible.
yeah. And, maybe for the next time, should there be a next time, we should add to our list of questions the Citizens Advisory Committee. Like, if you weren't selected, would you be interested
Yeah.
in us? But,
Well, I think we can go back and talk about that, and for our next agenda, and also to talk to the candidates that aren't selected as to whether there would be any interest if we
yeah, I
were
would
to
be
pick.
interested to ask them as part of my
Yeah,
interview process,
yeah,
because
yeah,
in
yeah.
some
You're right.
sense, it gets to a level of commitment to the community, right? So it's the water job or nothing, or yeah, no, I would do anything. Anyway, but that's a
Yeah.
future
Okay.
thing. In my conflict question, I look for a couple things, and one of the things I look for is listening skills, because I ask everyone for a specific example of being in a conflict. And the only one who actually gave me a very specific example was Gina, with her, description of the school and this, that, and forth. Where everybody else they all gave me kind of a vague answer, but conflict resolution aside, that question, she's the only one that actually had the listening to hear what I was asking for and gave me okay, Tammy, I'm going to give you a specific example and describe what happened, where everyone else was. So I just point out that from just a listening skill, nothing to do with conflict, I was impressed that Gina heard that in my question, where the other three didn't, and just kind of gave me a more general answer.
And actually, her answer did involve listening. I mean,
yeah, well, right, that's right. Yeah, as part of
in the
the
conflict,
resolution.
as
Yeah,
part of the,
yeah.
In terms of understanding what each person's goals were and trying to learn from each point of view. And I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah.
So.
The other aspect of that question I listen for is a level of self-awareness. Like, how do I behave in a situation when I'm in conflict? And I think they all gave, I think Gina and Jay and John, I think gave perhaps better answers to the self-awareness of like, what do I need to check with myself to do? Do I have to listen more? Do I have to, understand my position? So I also listen for that part. And again, I'm supporting Gina in that she was as good as everybody else in that particular aspect of something that I believe is important. Do we feel that, and this is a question for us, how important is it to us that the candidate comes in sort of up to speed with things Borrego? So clearly Gina and John are very up to speed
Mhm.
because of their life experiences, that they've naturally been able to be up to speed because that's what they've done, where Bernard and Jay aren't so much. How important do you guys feel being like really up to speed on what's going on with us? How important is that to us?
Well,
It's certainly helpful, but I was thinking about Paul,
yeah,
came to us
exactly.
relatively new, and um, he was, he was also a good listener, and a good collaborator, and he worked out really well without really having been in the community very long. So I don't know that that erases their qualifications at all, but but also I listen for other tells in terms of, would it be a good fit for them or not, I think um, is where I come from. Um, you know, uh, our first two candidates, I mean, I think Mr. Mao has some really interesting qualifications. Mr. Campbell, I was wondering, he's done really, really big deals, and this would be really, really small deals by comparison. And what would that feel like to him? Would it still feel important? So I don't think it's, uh, yeah, I don't think it's a black mark, but I do think it can be helpful to have an understanding of the community we work in, if that makes any sense. Such as, the fact that we're SDAC, and that we, and that there is, and what it means. Yeah, that was another thing, is what does the sustainability um, plan mean? And for some, for our first, it was, that we all have to reduce water, and that's not necessarily, um, you know, part of the plan. So that being said, Diane, did you have any input?
Uh, yes, I love that Steve brought up the idea of a citizens advisory committee, and I wish we had been able to ask people about that, because I really do see different strengths. And I too was thinking of Lyle as Mr. Mao was telling us about his risk um, modeling, his risk analysis. Um, I yeah, I mean, I would love to see whoever we don't choose being on a citizen advisory committee. I am going to agree with Dave that, and that's why I seconded Gina's nomination, that she has the best overall experience, I think, right now. Her expertise matches so many of our needs, I guess, is what I'm saying, including having been involved in the community. And her involvement with the American Legion is not insignificant. That part of our citizenry is a significant part here in Borrego. So that's what I can say.
Okay. And when you say Gina is over her qualifications, you mean in the broadest sense, in terms of, in all the categories, or whatever you want to say? And because obviously we have expertise in so many levels here in our
I
candidates.
am thinking of those different categories that Dave reeled off,
Mhm.
ranging from infrastructure worries. I guess park ramadas are not nearly as complicated as a few miles of pipeline, but it's still probably getting involved in contracts, et cetera. So yeah, ranging from infrastructure to getting the attention of state officials, to doing HR, to being able to read financials and work with a budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, her years of sitting on the advisory committee, which I also sat on for most of the same time. And Jeff got us good sandwiches, but it was a it was a big time commitment, and does give us some background. You know, we're us, and in this case, I guess I'm talking about Gina and me and Dave. Well, Dave especially. Anyway, gives us more depth understanding of the GSP/GMP.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that in Gina too.
Okay.
You know, I want to underscore again that these were all qualified candidates.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Yes.
and in fact, I don't think that this district has ever had this number of obviously qualified candidates, you know, to fill a seat. So I mean, we should
It's
feel
amazing.
blessed. Yeah, we should feel blessed that we've had such interest.
I did think of something to add, Kathy. May I?
Yes, of course.
That John obviously has by far the greatest hydrogeology expertise, and lots of historical background on the
Yes.
valley. He's been doing a really good job of being a voice from the community, both with our water district meetings and with the water master meetings. And in some ways, I envy him. He's able to do things now that I can't do because of being on this board.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's, if John were willing to be on, if we were to go this route of a citizen advisory committee, I think John would be outstanding on that.
Yeah. He's already on the Water and Land Use Committee for the sponsor group, and it's on the Environmental Working Group. So he's already doing a
Right.
journeyman's, work. I feel, he's already doing so much for the water issues.
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know whether a citizens advisory committee would overlay all that, or we'd have to talk about that. But because I wouldn't want him to feel like he was wasting his time. But
No.
I do think he's doing amazing work, and he's getting issues out there that need to be heard, and I think that's super important too. I also thought of Mr. Mao as, someone to tap for finance and audit or budget and audit. I mean, there's on the standing committee, so I don't know if that's
Right.
legal or not, but but so their citizens advisory committee could work on a number of different issues and be helpful. So my 2 cents. So is there any other conflicts with our motion, or anything else that anyone wants to bring up before I call for the question? Because we do have the motion on the floor, so we do need to vote. Okay, then I am going to take the roll for the motion to offer this open board position to Gina Moran. And I will call on Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Duncan,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. So we have a decision. Now what, Jeff? She would be sworn in at the next meeting?
Madam
We're not
President,
hearing.
can I share that you can swear in your board member right now if you wanted to, but
I
if
don't
she's
think
not
we're ready for
available,
that.
or that's not necessary, but just so you're aware.
Okay. I don't know. Whoops. Jeff just left. We lost his voice again. Can you hear us? Yeah. Okay. We're not hearing you. I love technology. Maybe it's gonna be a big relief to meet in person.
Muted. Hello?
There, I hear you.
So we're
Don't touch anything.
I'm going to sit on my hands. There we go. Okay, there we go. Or maybe in a straight jacket.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I would love to communicate with all the candidates. Kathy, maybe you and I could work on a communication to send back to them to thank them for their interest. And then
Yes.
work
And
it
maybe
in the
talk about a
correct way,
citizens committee. Yeah.
yeah, to measure their level of interest in continuing in some form going forward in the future on the Citizens Advisory Committee or its equivalent.
And
So,
we want them to keep their interest because anything can happen for any of us. So
for sure. And Kathy, I mean, it is budget time again.
I
Literally,
know, and
I mean,
I lost
February is
my
here.
partner. I did lose
February
my
is here.
partner
That's
in that.
literally budget
So
development time. So we might even have some, a need to actually
some help
meet
with
in the
that.
next month or few weeks to get the budget process going. So,
Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
there'd even be some current projects to start on theoretically.
Yes. Okay, and do we want to swear in our new board member if she accepts the position to next meeting? I mean, I don't know that you're prepared to do it today, are you?
It's not on the agenda, and there's really,
Okay.
I mean, other than Diana's important item on the customer waiver,
Yes.
language that we're changing, there's not anything really significant on the agenda, in my
Okay.
personal opinion. So I think, how about this? The board handle the business for this meeting, and then at the very top of the agenda for the 24th, we will swear in Gina. And then I'll have the
Okay.
responses back from all the candidates on their level of interest in continuing, and then we can, as the board and as a group, discuss the Citizens Advisory Committee concept or similar.
Do you want to make the calls? Do you want me to make the calls?
I can do it. I just would like to maybe at least get
Collaborate with
with you on
you. Okay.
exactly what I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Say the right
Sounds
words.
like a plan.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, that was a very productive morning.
I'm kind of
Um,
glad we had nothing else on the agenda.
really,
The usual five
I
or six
think
items, we'd be here all day.
I'm glad that the things that we talked about didn't get added. All right, so we've completed item 2A. I'm going to go to 2B and talk about the leak adjustment policy revisions with Diana.
I am here.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. Yes, it's been a very productive day, productive morning. So what what you have in front of you in the board package is a adjustment to our policy for the water leak adjustments. This was originally approved back in November of 2020. And since then, we have been completing leak adjustments, but we found that the policy was not really consistent to what we were doing. So we just wanted to amend the policy to give further clarification as to the type of adjustments that the BWD is would be considered in giving the adjustments. So I included as a red line version where you could see some of the language that was taken out, and then I also included a clean version. Some of the clarifications that I put in there were eligible items to be considered would be a water heater leak, main line break, faulty irrigation timer or valves, or act of nature, meaning coyotes or bunnies chewing through the water lines. And we have those previously excluded and in our policy. And so this is just a bit of a clarification.
So the revisions are mainly adding things that could possibly be considered.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And that what we have been giving adjustments for.
Okay. And it's still once every 5 years.
Correct.
Uh-oh, fire department. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this revision, policy revision? And if not, I will entertain a motion to approve it.
Well, I so move.
Thank you, Dave.
I
Do I have a
second.
second? Thank you, Tammy. Is there any discussion? Members of the public, if there are any members of the public? Anybody have any questions or comments? All right, then I'm going to call for the question. The motion on the floor is to approve the revised policy on excusing of water bills that are exceptionally large and by error, or not by error, but by conditions out of people's control. Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Duncan,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. So we have, thank you, Diana, for your work on going over that policy and getting it up to speed. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank
So
you.
you can
Thank you,
put it in
Diana.
print now.
Thank you, Madam President. And
Okay.
then, as we evolve and roll out our automated meter reading infrastructure, hopefully, theoretically, the significance and the magnitude of these excessive, unrecognized water usages will diminish significantly. We'll know them within 1 day, theoretically, or two, of the excessive use as now compared to when we realize the excessive use once we read the meter monthly, and then it's the proverbial horse is out of the barn by then. The big
Right.
bill has already happened. So, the number of strange circumstances won't change theoretically. It's just we'll know about them a lot sooner going forward, which eliminates the big bills. So,
Right. And I wonder if it would change, just thinking, if someone was notified that there's a water leak or some excessive water usage going on and they failed to do anything about it. I mean, they didn't answer the notification or whatever. Is that that's not covered, right?
that's an excellent point,
I mean,
Kathy.
I'm just thinking
We'll need to
about,
have some
what could
policy.
happen. What could happen in the future? Say, they're out of the country, or usually people have caretakers for their property, but I'm just thinking down the line to what could happen next. But I guess we'll cross that river when we get to it.
No, that's a good point. I mean, the way it's set up now, if you have a known leak that's not corrected, you're on the hook for it. However, I think the way I heard your first comment/question was, and I was in the automated meter reading mode, is what happens if somebody ignores our notifications, which maybe you didn't really mean it literally that way, but that's the way I heard it. So you're right. We will probably need an adjustment to the policy once the automated meter reading goes through.
But I guess it falls under failing to take care of it. But if they're, for some reason they didn't get, I don't know. Anyway,
right. If they did get it, and if they did get the notice and don't do anything,
then they're on the hook.
Should be their responsibility. So yeah, we will probably need to make a revision once we get the automated meter reading going.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Item 2C is the Borrego Springs Sub-Basin Water Master Board report. Do we have an update, Mr. Duncan?
Well, we have an update. There was really nothing really substantial that came out of the last meeting a month ago. Though there was a final water year accounting for water year 2021 and 2022. I think everyone was gratified to hear that, metering now represents 98% of the pumpers, and that those unmetered pumpers represented less than 5% of the total pumping. So, and it was basically just some technical issues. I would not be surprised within the next month or two that we get a report that says that it's now 100% metered. So, but those unmetered uh, pumpers represented a very small percentage of the total amount of the annual production, which was good to hear. We do have another meeting that's coming up this Thursday afternoon at 4:30. There will be a discussion. There was some concern expressed through the AWARE members that there was a possibility of some conflicts of interest between the grant-funded projects coming up, that there was a conflict between UCI researchers between the Tub Canyon project and the Water Master project. There was expressed concern that there was conflict of interest between you, Kathy, being the president of BWD, and
Right.
your husband working at UCI, which is, quite frankly, I think is all nonsense.
Well, it's a distant relationship. I mean, he manages the research center, and he doesn't really work, at UCI with all the people that are involved. However, I can see, without understanding all the relationships, I can understand that.
Well, I
Um,
certainly think that there's some education that needs to occur because Jim's position, simply manages a physical facility that accommodates researcher. He does not participate in the research. He has no sway over the outcome of said research. I mean, simply providing a physical facility like a Motel 6 for researchers, and to
right.
kind of
Pretty much.
conflate the
It's,
two.
it's providing a facility for researchers, and, assisting in other ways if they can, but it doesn't have any true connection to the science.
No,
There's no influence. And I think maybe, and that's the concern, I think the concern is more about the outcome of the science.
right.
But yeah, I mean, we can, if it's helpful, we can answer any concerns as if we if we should or had to, we can certainly explain what's going on. But also, just so Jim is planning his retirement this year. So by the time Prop 68 actually gets going, um, he will not he will not be there as an employee as of June or so of this year. So
Well,
that's
well, I certainly,
one less conflict.
yeah, I mean, I think that this is really overblown, and I don't really want to give it a lot more oxygen
Right.
than what it's already received. But I do think that there's some basic education that needs to occur. I do know that Sam has been communicating with the Aware Group and UCI and Land IQ. Um, there was concern that UCI should not be a participant in the
Right.
in the Water Master project at all. Um, Land
And
IQ Land
yeah.
IQ has come back and said there is nobody else that can do this but UCI.
Well, and it's a whole different set of scientists. I
Yeah,
mean, the other connection we have is that we help that BWD um, uh, provides some funding for the air quality program, which is monitored by a UCI employee. But
right.
that is also a very separate type of study. So
I know, absolutely. So there will be a discussion about this issue at the meeting. Like I say, I don't want to give it any more oxygen than it's already received. But
yeah,
there is some education that needs to be done. I find it frustrating that what kind of prompts all this kind of stuff is somebody's whispering into somebody's ear, kind of
mhm.
creating this dark web of conspiracy between BWD, uh, Jim, and UCI, and it's just nonsense. It's just
Well,
plain nonsense. If you
I
thought
just
about
I
thought it through, how you would see the lack of connection that exists between all three.
I'm just sad that there's continues to be distrust
Well,
coming
but
from
you
that
know,
quarter.
I mean, it feels very much like the discussions or the feelings that are occurred during the Borrego Water Coalition days. It's the same sort of fear and mistrust that was evidenced
Mhm.
then, and then here it is again raising its ugly head. But hopefully
Right.
we will get to the bottom of it and kind of
Yeah.
clear up
It
the air.
feels like a ghost.
Oh,
So
it does absolutely. There's
yeah.
the specter of fear and loathing that has popped up once more.
Okay.
So
Well, I'll be at the meeting, and if and you can just tap me if you want anything to be said.
sure,
So
thank you. Other than that,
um,
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I've reviewed the agenda. There is nothing. I know it's some pretty perfunctory stuff that we're going to discuss and be reported about. So I encourage you all to be there on Thursday at 4:30. The meeting will be virtual again, not in person. I do hope that starts again soon. I think that that's a better way to deal with all this rather than the continuing virtual water master meetings. So that's
yeah,
that.
it was nice to see everybody in person, I'll have to say.
Yeah.
Could
Um,
could I chime in a little bit on the
yes,
Water
Diane, go
Master
ahead. Go ahead.
thing? I was at that meeting, and there was, I have to admit, I'm having trouble remembering details, but I think there was a fair amount of discussion of updating the hydrologic model, and Shannon made the point, as he is wont to do, about money aspects of that, saying, well, do we really need to do this? I think what I remember him saying is, we don't need the very best. We don't need a perfect model. We just need one that's good enough. And I wasn't able to reply and say, well, I'm not arguing for a perfect model. I'm arguing for one that's looking at data from the last 8 years or maybe even longer. I know that the USGS study that contained the model came out, I think it was November 2015. I would bet that they stopped doing the science like at the end of 2014. So climate data, for example, has really changed a lot in that period. So I just wanted to comment on that, as that I see a BWD concern, and Jim Bennett agreed with this, as I recall, that we do need to update the model.
Well, I don't think anybody disagrees about an update. I think that everybody is on board with the fact that there is likely new data, some corrections to be made to the model, fixing some possible errors. I think that everybody is on board with updating of the model, you know. And I had made the comment to Shannon during that discussion that back in the proposed Grant 68 projects, they were talking about creating a whole new water flow model. And the estimated cost of that was about $1.5 million. So even if we spend up to $500,000 updating the current model, that's a savings of almost $1 million in creating a brand new one. So shouldn't be grousing too much about the cost of updates.
Right, and I'll mention that I just saw yesterday there are some long range predictions that not this year but next year could be an El Nino year. So there could be some updates of the model in the direction that people would like to see it go, which is that there's more input, right? So we
Right.
want to keep an open
We've been in
mind.
drought. It's interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting because we've suffered longer droughts, and but then the next few years could be wet, and that's what we've seen over history is, similar behavior. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. I know that Trey was here earlier, and I don't know if Trey is still here. or came back?
Madam President, he did take off, but I did ask him about the agenda and he gave me a
Yeah.
short answer, and that was
Okay.
agenda looks fine.
Okay. That is that his technical advisory committee update?
Yes.
Okay. All
Madam
righty then.
President, can I add one thing? Um,
Of, of
Only
course.
because during the course of your meeting here, the Water Master did send out an updated agenda packet with all of their staff reports attached. They'd sent out the
Oh,
original yesterday, but then they updated the staff reports, and they had a discussion in there about the proper role of the TAC. And so it appears that that's on the agenda. And their staff report, it looks like all they did was quote from the judgment and the rules and regulations about the various things that are said in there about the role of the TAC. They didn't really go beyond that. And so I defer to Dave about what that discussion is going to more fully entail, but it sounds like that's on the agenda, and something's going to be discussed along those lines. And I guess the reason I raise it is because in some of the correspondence that Borrego Water has shared with the TAC and the Water Master here over the last number of months, we did express some concern about, for example, with the de minimis well application, whether the TAC really had a fulsome process before, as part of the evaluation of that application, and that we in our letter had suggested that there be a more rigorous analysis and a more close scrutiny of those kind of applications, as well as other TAC materials, as part of all their processes, and to follow, I won't say to follow the judgment to the letter of the law, but there certainly are some descriptions in the judgment about what the TAC's role is in terms of having all the materials before them, how they come to a consensus, or if they don't come to a consensus, that they issue a written opinion expressing the minority view and all that kind of thing. So I don't know whether any of those letters we previously sent have any bearing on what will be discussed at the upcoming Water Master meeting on the subject of the TAC and its processes, but I thought I'd remind them, or at least bring that up with the board.
I do recall that there was a discussion at maybe it was the last month's meeting, where they were talking about the role of Andy as much of anything else, whether he's a facilitator or an advocate. And was that what it was, Dave? And then whether they need to meet in person or they just have a report, or there were different things that they talked about in terms of meeting the requirements listed in the stipulated agreement.
No, there was a discussion about Andy's relationship to the TAC, and like you say, whether he was simply a facilitator of discussion, or played a more active role in the TAC itself. There was some discussion about some of the TAC feeling that they were being asked to support staff's recommendations as opposed to looking at the issue from a broader perspective, and that certainly made some sense. So I mean, there's going to be, I think, several things that kind of come out of this, whether the water board itself needs to physically meet with the TAC as indicated in the judgment, whether the reports we get back from the TAC act as that meeting, whether Andy reporting from the TAC, maybe it would be appropriate for a member of the TAC, maybe they could rotate for one TAC member to be at the Water Master Board meetings to give the TAC reports, or to give some sort of meaningful feedback from the TAC. So I think it's going to be kind of a wide-ranging discussion on Thursday. So tune in.
Sounds like it. I think it could be very interesting, so encourage your attendance. Anything else on the Water Master?
So on the TAC, for those of you that lived the creation of the GSP, was the intention that the Water Master hire experts to then advise us? And it specifically gets to Andy and the staff's, West Yost staff role with respect to their technical expertise.
Andy's been hired through West Yost to be the Water Master's technical consultant. And then beyond that, then is the TAC itself, where each of the signing parties then can have representation, technical representation on the committee. But Andy is our third party technical consultant.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's the purpose. I mean, the TAC is there to give the individual parties a voice into the technical process, and Andy is supposed to facilitate those meetings. That's part of his role, but ultimately he is the technical advisor, or I should say West Yost is the technical advisor to the Water Master Board. That is their role. He, in my view, he's paid to give recommendations. He's paid to facilitate the TAC and to gather information there and take commentary, but he is paid for his technical work. That's the point of hiring a third party independent to do that. And so when I heard the description a few minutes ago that, well, gee, what's his role? Is he really supposed to be giving opinions? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. Every other water master in the state of any size has a staff, usually a consultant, that gives their recommendations. That's their job.
And then Andy's supposed to use the TAC to help with his recommendations, correct, Steve? They're
Right.
the
So
sounding
correct.
board, and then right, yeah.
Right. And yeah, that's right, Jeff. And so that the parties have the ability to provide their technical input through their professionals, and then that set of discussions and recommendations is supposed to filter through West Yost, Andy, and he's supposed to use those in a meaningful way, or at least address those. But ultimately, he and West Yost will give the recommendations they do to the Water Master Board.
Kind of in a neutral role, right? I think Shannon used the term Switzerland a couple times. Andy Switzerland, right?
Well, that's a
Well,
No,
weird
but I think he used those
concept to
exact
me.
words. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I don't, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I'm not sure that's the right analogy, because
yeah,
you're paying him to have an opinion based
right.
upon his scientific expertise. You're not paying him to stand there and just be a neutral and not have an opinion on anything.
No, I
That's,
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
yeah.
I didn't say it.
No, but
I didn't
I
mean it
think
that
that's
way.
the
But
thing.
he's not doesn't work for
That,
anyone. Not the
that's good to
referee.
hear.
Not a
No,
strike.
that's really good to hear. And so then the other point is, you know, I rather than I think part of the discussion was, does Andy come in with his recommendation and solicit everyone else's support, or does he give his opinion but also gather everyone's other opinion, and then they come up with a consensus, which he then is obligated to report to the water master? And I guess no one was clear on whether that was happening or not. And then my other point, my question would be then, if Andy is a member of the TAC, is that enough for him to be present at the water master meetings to represent the TAC?
I don't think
Well,
he
that's
represents the TAC per se. He
Okay,
relays the TAC recommendations and the consensus or non-consensus that they've reached, and he facilitates that. I'd have to go
yeah,
back and look at the words, but I don't.
yeah,
He's not really a member of the TAC,
He's
because the
not.
TAC is made up of representatives of the parties, right? Giving
okay,
recommendations to Andy and the West Yost folks, who are the technical consulting firm to the Water Master Board. So they meet. Andy's there. He gets all their input. He's supposed to, as part of that job, share with the Water Master Board what he's heard from the TAC, and also to write down if there are any minority opinions. But ultimately, whether he has an opinion that's the same as one of those, one of those sets of bodies, whether the majority or the minority or some third opinion, he's paid to give his opinion, regardless of what it is, A, B, C, or D, in my view.
so he gives his opinion, but he reports the decision based on consensus of whatever
He's
the
not
issue is.
required to he's not required to reach consensus, right? I mean, he can facilitate consensus, and if it just so happens, and we hope and cross our fingers that consensus is reached most of the time, then he can report all that. But then he's supposed to say on top of that, this was the consensus reached by the TAC, and I, Andy, in my professional opinion, agree with that consensus recommendation. He's supposed to have that additional role. That's his job. And
Okay,
it's also bears mention, and I'm sorry to be so animated about this, it's just that we talked about this in the negotiations so much that, Andy's probably looking at 50 different issues, and the TAC's only looking at the top 5, right? So he has other things that he does on a day-to-day basis. He's there to be the technical advisor for the operation of the water master on a daily basis. He's just not meeting once a month or once every couple of months and gathering input on sort of technical policy issues. He's supposed to be doing the work every day as things come up. So that's a different role than just reporting what the TAC says. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I do have a quick question that arises from this. Is Andy full time with our water master?
Yes.
Okay, he doesn't have any other clients.
No, he's a West Yost employee. Well, West Yost has other clients.
Great.
He has other
But
clients,
Andy
Diane. He
doesn't
works in
bill
other
to them.
basins. He works in other
Yeah.
He has,
basins that I work on. So he doesn't spend 40 hours a week on Borrego.
Okay, thanks.
okay. I'm going to move
So I
down to
guess
section. Oh, go ahead.
we've talked about this once before. So then Andy makes his technical recommendation, reports what the TAC either agrees or disagrees with it. And then what's the role of the board with respect to Andy? Is it, and this sort of gets back to this, like Shannon interrogating Andy's sort of credibility. To what extent does the board and Dave then turn around and evaluate Andy's sort of technical representation as being non-technical board members? Was there any kind of like GSP, GMP discussion about how that works?
Not really. I will say to you on the one hand that it's not particularly common practice for board members in a public agency or a water master to grill their own experts. But on the other hand, West Yost does work for the entire water master board. And so that is their role. That is their boss. Their boss is not any individual. It's the entire board. And so if board members feel that that's an appropriate use of their time to grill, there's probably nothing that stops them from doing that. But I will acknowledge, Tammy, that it is sort of an interesting thing. The idea that non-technical board members are grilling a technician, of great experience. It seems like an awkward thing to do, but it's common, right? Because the water master board, in some sense, is a policy-making board. And their technical experts are there to advise them and give them recommendations. So ultimately, the judgment gives the water master board the authority to make those decisions with recourse to the judge in case one of those decisions is askew.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still in shock. Okay. Water master issues, anything else? Let's go down to section 3, the board committee reports. One thing I'm noticing is that there are some spaces here that Paul has left behind. I have appointed myself to the wastewater treatment plant issue that we're working with Rams Hill on. So Tammy and I will be speaking with T2 and all of that about what's on their minds. And it looks like we could use another volunteer for finance, for cybersecurity and risk management, and for operations and infrastructure, and budget and audit. Paul was a busy man. And of course, I will ask Gina if she has any interest in some of these committees, but I want everyone to think about that. I'm not going to jump on it right now. The only, I know that she's capable of doing budget and audit, and I just wanted to get your input as to whether it would be uncomfortable for the other board members if Gina and I were on the budget and audit committee, because we come from the same type of background in terms of finances and budgeting. So if I were to ask her to be on that, would that be a problem for anybody? I'm hearing nothing.
Fine with me.
Okay. I just wanted to put that out there. I just thought about that. We have we have similar backgrounds in terms of that kind of thing. And of course, Jessica, we rely heavily on Jessica's expertise. So, but anyway, think about these ad hoc committees. I will be sharing them again at the next meeting, and I will probably talk with Gina and solicit her, her interest in potential committee work. Does anyone have anything to report on the standing or ad hoc committees?
I have two.
Okay.
We just after our board meeting in December on the wastewater treatment plant, like a day or two after the easements were signed, and so the big task of the last almost year has been completed, and easements are signed. All the documents have been distributed to the various places they need to be distributed, and that one we can move to the done column.
Yay!
Yeah.
Good job,
Yeah.
Tammy. That was, I mean, you did a huge amount of work on that, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that
the other
was.
update I have, unless anybody has, I mean, it's sort of old news done. The other update I have, and Diane, I'll just start, and you can add, and Jeff can add, is the Prop 68, I think it's implementation ad hoc. I don't have it up in front of me. We had action on that. We've had Jessica, BWD, working with Megan and Steve at BB&K with some minor changes to the subgrantee agreements, mostly catching sort of a few date things that were just wrong, and things like DWR requires something within 90 days. Well, the subgrantees need to give it to BWD within 75 days so that then BWD can turn it and get it to DWR in time. And so the subgrantee agreement said 90, and they were changed to 75. Those kinds of changes. So, which were distributed to all the subgrantee folks, and as far as I know, non-controversial. Then, probably more interesting, we had a meeting with members of all the subgrantee projects, where Jeff led us through the subgrantee agreements, sort of explaining to all the participants what the various sections meant, answered questions. Steve also jumped in quite a few times and clarified items. We made suggestions, strong recommendations, such as all the subgrantees clear their CEQA requirement as soon as possible, which is really do the work to qualify that they're exempt from CEQA, but just to make sure that there's no down the stream issues. Steve really pushed, like, come on, you guys, just jump on it, we'll help you. And that needs to be in a board meeting, so hopefully, Jeff will get that on our next board meeting. We have to approve their exemption statements. Anyway, so there were some specific takeaways and recommendations from BWD and Next Actions, and then a desire to get together with the Department of Water Resources with sort of an accumulated list of questions that have come up as soon as possible, which sounds like it'll be end of January, where these questions really need to go to DWR to get their final answer for resolution. Diane, do you have anything to add that I missed?
No, that's a good summary, but I wondered if Jeff has or Jessica have gotten, or Steve have gotten any, have been contacted with CEQA questions, and there were a few things you were going to ask DWR right away, Jeff, like the first report due date.
Yep, we've done all that. We just have not heard back the responses from DWR yet, because that meeting was last Wednesday, Tuesday, or something. So.
Yeah, or Thursday even. Okay,
Thursday,
I just
Thursday,
wondered
yeah.
I wondered if DWR had miraculously replied.
Not
Okay.
yet. Not yet. But as Tammy mentioned, we do have a call and a date scheduled to have a big powwow with all the applicants, the subgrantee applicants, us, and DWR staff, and that is January 27th, I do believe. So we're just we're coordinating everyone's schedules in terms of the time for that meeting, but we actually do have a date now. I know I asked for it, I think in October or November, but anyway. Actually, Chris admitted they are very busy now with the round 2 of the Prop 68 project submittals and that whole process. So at least at the staff level, they've started to move on to that second round of funding, and we're just one of the stragglers left over from the first round. So good news is, I think the way the schedule is working out, this will give DWR a chance to review all the comments and questions that were a result of this meeting, the pre-kickoff meeting we were calling it, that we had kind of individually, as the BWD and the Borrego Springs group had without DWR staff being involved. So kind of the whole concept was, let's get all the questions identified, comments identified, get those to DWR quickly. So when we do have the call on the 27th, we can talk about responses to questions and not just asking them the questions and then waiting a month or two for a response. So all in all, I think the meeting was a smashing success. Thanks to Steve and Megan. Steve had some really good comments. I forget what they were, but a couple of them weren't even legal related. Invoicing and don't hold on to your invoices, get them all in quarterly. I mean, Steve did a great job. Because that is super important.
Thanks.
So, yeah, good meeting.
Jeff, do you want to, or Diane, do you want to talk about grants we're pursuing at all? Or should we say?
We'll do that next time. Anna will be here. It'll be time for we skipped December. December would have been our normal bi-monthly update from BB and K. So how about we do that all in 2 weeks, officially?
Great.
Cool.
Perfect. All right. We also have a new ad hoc committee, which is the Borrego Springs Water Basin Water Quality Committee. Yay! Tammy and Diane are jumping on that, as we heard, and even in today's interviews, that that water quality is becoming and will continue to be very important to all of us. So, thanks for volunteering for that that subject, Tammy and Diane. Okay, we're going to go to section 4, the staff reports. We have 4A is the administrative manager. Yes,
Kathy?
Ms. Tammy.
Before we leave ad hocs, when we think to Gina joining, are we going to sort of open up all of the possible ad hoc committee? How open are we going to be? Should we think about maybe I want to go to a different committee, or is your thinking we'll keep pretty much what we have been doing? Is there any kind of thoughts you have on that?
I hadn't thought about it, but I think we can certainly offer that.
I mean, the water quality just popped into mind. If Gina is passionate about it, right? Like, are we going to let her show her passion in one of these other ones that we may not know?
How about this? Everyone think about, where you're at or where you'd like to be. If you want to change something up, that's fine. I can show Gina the list and garner her interest or what she feels she would be best at helping with, and we'll bring that back. She'll participate obviously in the next meeting as a sworn member of the board, and we can all give our inputs. How's that?
Perfect. Thanks.
We'll put that on the agenda as an action, Jeff. Okay, and now we'll go to section 4A, the administrative manager report. Diana.
Hi again.
Hi again.
Hi. Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I just wanted to let you know that the Springs purchased 9.25 EDUs from the district as part of their RV park expansion. As this was a direct purchase from the district, the transaction just needed to be memorialized in the minutes. The EDUs were purchased, like I said, for the RV park expansion, which has been built and is in use at this time. So I just wanted
sewer EDUs, right?
Sewer EDUs, yes, right. Sewer EDUs.
Okay. I didn't know that they were attached to our.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
They are.
They're master metered on the water side, and then the full park's connected to our wastewater treatment plant.
Ah, okay. I didn't know it went that far up the road.
So there will be a BPA transfer form that's going to come through to where the Springs will be transferring BPA to the district to handle the potable water demand. So,
Okay.
but we
Sound
didn't, we didn't need to charge them for sewer. Plus, they would be paying like the capacity fee on the water side. They'll be paying all the other fees associated with connecting to the water system, but they just happen to own their own BPA. Plus, it's more than 1 acre foot, so they wouldn't have qualified under our small development program anyway, but they happen to own BPA as part of the judgment. And, you know, Bill Wright's history in the basin. Bill's been pumping for a long time out there, so.
Okay.
There was what, 58,000, what was the total amount, Diana? I forget, 58, 38?
Yeah,
The total amount of the payment?
it was about 58,000. That included the water capacity fee and the purchase for the sewer EDUs.
And then the sewer treatment plant capacity fee and everything that's required. All fees included for the Springs total 58,000.
Right.
Okay.
They did not have the new meter installation fee because they're master metered, so they're just adding a demand to the existing meter. But, you know, logically, if they're adding a demand like that, then that water needs to be placed into our column because that's a new demand that would become an obligation of the district. You know, that they're now connected to our system, so it's important for them to transfer that BPA since we will now be meeting that demand. And we definitely don't want to take that from our existing ratepayers. So just like anybody else, any new demand, they got to bring the water with them to us.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions?
Thanks.
I have a question. For sewer fees, do they have to be spent on providing sewer service as with our water services?
Yes.
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 Yes, all these fees are specified in the
They're
interest town
restricted.
center sewer
Yeah.
agreement. Yeah.
They're restricted, right? They can't go into our pot to use for buying land, for example.
No. No.
Okay, thanks.
It's restricted to its use for the wastewater treatment. Diana, anything else going on that you want to mention?
Yes, just one other thing. We have a pretty busy week here in the office. We are doing CPR first aid training tomorrow. I know it is a bit of short notice, but if anybody is interested in attending, it's going to be here in at the Water District. It's going to be performed by the local fire department here. They're going to train us as they would as if we were going to get a certification, but we aren't getting the actual cards because the district does not require us to have the card, and it's more cost effective that way. So it is at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning here in the boardroom. And also we're having a barbecue staff lunch meeting on Thursday in the shop area. So if you all want to come over for lunch, you're welcome to as well.
What time is that, Diana?
Noon for the barbecue lunch. Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, Diana.
All right, Steve, we're back around to you. You can talk to us about new meeting standards.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate it. So, as you all know, for the past couple of years, maybe longer, 3 years, we've been operating first under an order from the governor and then under some subsequent legislation to have these virtual meetings that allowed in times of an emergency declared by the governor or recommendations from a county official for social distancing that allow us to have these virtual meetings, provided the board adopts these resolutions every 30 days, continuing those. However, the governor has announced several months ago that the COVID emergency officially ends on February 28th. so the end of next month. And at that time, virtual meetings as they've been occurring for the last, again, 2-3 years will no longer precisely be permitted unless some county official from the county of San Diego recommends social distancing, notwithstanding the governor's change of heart. And my limited research to date suggests that there isn't yet a county official willing to do that, and so it does not appear the county is going to come through with that. And so that means that the district has to consider going back to one of the either the formats that were provided for in the Brown Act that have been on the books for a number of decades, or taking advantage of some new opportunities that were effective as of January 1st this year. But the caution is that these new opportunities are pretty restrictive, but I'll go over those with you in a second. So first of all, as you all know, under the Brown Act, this is all about where the 5 board members are. This is not about where your GM is, where I am, or where any member of the public is. This is all about where the 5 of you are. That's what the law is concerned about. And so obviously, under the Brown Act, you're allowed to meet in person. There's no problems with you doing that. And so long as you do that and you have your board meeting open, board meeting room open, that is a permissible thing. There doesn't yet seem to be, there's a little confusion on this, there doesn't seem to be any restriction on the board holding a virtual meeting to benefit the public, however. And so as long as you 5 are all in the same boardroom, you can continue to have these virtual meeting opportunities, not to benefit yourself, but to benefit others in the community so that they can participate in your board meetings by Zoom or GoToMeeting or however you want to do it. That's okay. There's not going to be any restrictions on that so long as the 5 of you are in your boardroom together or in the library together, wherever you want to do it. So that's one option you can do. Second option, under the way the Brown Act has always existed, is that if you're going to have a board member who is not going to be in person at your district, and so long as that is no more than 2 board members, then you can allow that, provided that the name and address of the board member, whatever location they're going to be at, is printed on your agenda, and that location is open to the public, so the public can go over there and participate in the meeting, whether that's in your garage or in a conference room in the library, wherever it is. That is allowed, and those have always been the Brown Act rules. We do have to have a majority of the board in person in one place in Borrego, but the other 2 can be in Borrego, in Tahiti, wherever they are, as long as no more than 2 are. So those are sort of the old rules. Some of you may remember those rules where you went to a conference and you printed on the agenda. I will be at the Aqua Conference, and I will be at the Hyatt Hotel in room number 35, and you can come if you happen to be there, member of the public, and want to participate. You're allowed to do that, and I will tape the agenda onto my door, and you can walk in. So those are the old rules, and those are still allowed. Now, the legislature has also come up with, again, as of January 1st, some new rules that potentially allow board members to participate remotely without listing their home address in 2 particular situations, but there are fairly substantial limits on how many times you can do this. One is called a just cause exception, which we'll go over in a second, and the other one is in the case of a personal emergency. And there's some significant limitations on what those mean, but let me go over first, and I'm scrolling down here in something I wrote down, what the just cause rules are. So a just cause is one of 4 particularized circumstances in the law. One is that a board member is providing child care or caregiving for a child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner. That's category 1. Category 2 is if the board member has a contagious illness. Category number 3 is there's a need related to a physical or mental disability for which the board cannot make reasonable accommodations otherwise. And number 4 is if there's travel on official business for the board member, so say they're at the Aqua Conference. Those are the 4 categories. Now, while those categories could be said to be somewhat broad, the issue with that in the law is that a board member can only use that just cause exception up to 2 times per year. So 2 board meetings, that's it. Can't use it 3 board meetings, can't use it regularly. It's a 2-off kind of situation. So you can't just use it over and over again. And that's why it's so constrained that it becomes difficult to have that exception apply, except again, twice a year, you got a freebie if you fit into those categories, but beyond that, you don't. The second circumstance is called an emergency circumstance. So if you have a particularized emergency, and I had it written down here, I'm looking at the law here, what that emergency means. It means precisely a physical or family medical emergency that prevents a member from attending in person. And so if you have a medical emergency, then there's also an exception, but there are some significant caveats on that exception too. The first exception, as awkward as it may sound, you can't, as a board member, just declare I have a medical emergency. You actually have to go to the board, and the other remaining 4 board members have to vote and agree that you have a medical emergency. So again, very awkward, but somehow you've got to know you have a medical emergency in advance, or are going to have one. Put it on the board agenda. Have the board vote, yes, we agree that this person has a medical emergency, and then you get to slide into the exception. But even if you slide into that exception and the board votes by majority that says that you have a medical emergency, there's still a limitation on how many times you can use that. And that limitation is that you can't do it for more than 3 consecutive months, and you can't do it for more than 20% of the board's regular meetings within a calendar year. So those are the 2 exceptions. So really you can only use that 20% of the time. 3 consecutive months, 20. So it has to be a medical emergency, but it has to be short term, and the board has to agree with you that that constitutes a medical emergency. So those are the 2 exceptions our wizened legislature has come up with. They obviously really want boards to meet in person, at least among the board members, and have your boardroom doors open. If there are particular circumstances that fit that just cause or personal emergency situation, those are available to you. But I'm going to say that if there's a board member that really wants to take advantage of not being in the boardroom for a more extended period of time, the more rational or more reasonable or more likely outcome is for you to default back to the old Brown Act rules, which again are listing your address wherever you are on the agenda and opening up your garage if you're at home and holding the meeting in your garage, whatever you're going to do. That's a sort of an easier outcome than these very limited outcomes that the legislature has given to us in these exceptions. Again, those exceptions are available on very rare occasion, but they're not an answer if you have a need as a board member to not be in person regularly. So happy to answer any questions about that. Sorry it's so convoluted, but that's the legislative process last year was that there were quite a few reasonable, what I would call more expansive Brown Act exceptions for board members put before the legislature in various bills, but after it went through the sausage grinder, that's where they ended up. Those 2 narrow exceptions are all you got, unfortunately. So again, happy to answer any questions.
That's interesting that you would have your emergency in advance, but I guess I can see a couple of circumstances for that. And if there isn't time to notify about your emergency, you can use the just cause, right?
Right.
So,
So you get a freebie 2 times a year. So I guess that maybe the notion is if there really is an emergency, use the just cause real quick. And then if it looks like it's going to debilitate you or whatever for an extended period of time, then you come in and ask for, hey, can I get the 3-monther on the emergency?
okay. All right. Has everyone got that? we'll have fun explaining that one to our new board member.
Question.
And yes, go ahead, Tammy.
Can we limit the density of folks that attend board meetings, the public that attends board meetings?
I
Um,
think if, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, certainly there's nothing to prevent the board from putting seats, 10 feet apart or whatever it is. If you're going to get into a circumstance where that causes a situation where every member of the public who wants to attend cannot get in person, then we're probably going to have to default back to my recommendation that the board opens up, again, just for benefit of the public, or continues these go-to meetings, right? So if you've only got room for 20 people, 20 members of the public in your audience, and another 20 want to come in, and that's happening, the best course of action is for you to continue these go-to meetings, put all 5 board members in that room, unless they meet one of these exceptions, let 20 people from the public in, but also have a go-to meeting, so these third members of the public are still able to attend your meetings. And I will share one thing I forgot, because there's a lot of details in this legislation, not that this is that important, but if you are a board member and you do take advantage of being remote and not being in person at your board meeting, and we set up these procedures, the law now requires that board members show their faces, and it's video and audio capable. So you can't just call in. You have to call in with the video feature.
What about the regular Brown Act? Say we're in Tahiti and want to call in. Can we just call in for the regular Brown Act, the old one?
Let me look.
I'm just throwing that out there because that's how it used to go.
Yeah.
Before technology took over.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's hard because now this provision of the Brown Act, it's number 54953, that used to be 2 pages long, is now like 10 pages long. So there's all this detail, and I know there's a requirement that you have to show your face, but I can't quite tell from reading it whether that applies to all the Brown Act exceptions or just the new ones. So I'd have to look at that, Kathy.
Okay, yeah, if you could just answer that question sometime, maybe next meeting or whatever.
Okay.
Just curious because, I just want to cover all the potentials. And it is, I noticed that our next board meeting is listed as being available in person and online. Did you guys know that? So one of the things we could do, Tammy, to satisfy spacing is to go to the library and have our meeting there, because even when, the conference room, we rarely have, audience members. I mean, now that we're in the water master years and the stipulated agreement, some of the old issues have settled a little bit, and we don't get the participation we used to get. So we do need to decide where we're going to have our next meeting, apparently, because we've advertised it as being in person and online.
Yeah, Kathy, that just might have been a clerical error based on the fact that I think I used this previous agenda for the town hall. Those words just might be leftovers from when I had, and the town hall will be in person, blah, blah, blah. So
Okay.
I fully intend to have the complete board discussion here in 2 weeks about location, time.
Okay, good.
So
we'll correct.
So yeah.
We'll re-report the next meeting as being virtual then.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
One more, because Steve, end of February is when all the new requirements start, right?
We have 3 more meetings that we can have this way.
Sweet.
But we can stop it, we can start sooner if we want to.
Yeah.
Right?
I fully agree that continuing with GoTo is a great idea, even if we're meeting in person. Just allowing access for everyone to participate, whether they're here or elsewhere, would be great.
Okay. Thank you, Steve, for all that interesting information. And Mr. Poole, do you have anything else to report on your general manager
No,
report?
I think I'm happy with the
You covered?
congressional direct appropriation discussion we
That,
had from a little while ago. We're all good.
that
I
was
just do
wonderful.
want to recognize that I did get kind of a sad email, I don't know, a week or so ago that Wendy Quinn
Yeah,
is going to
retiring.
retire. I forget the exact date. She's given us a couple months, but
Yeah.
and thank you, Wendy, for giving us a couple months to replace you. But oh my gosh, she's really going to be missed. And yeah, thank you very
We,
much for
yeah,
all
we
your
so,
years of service, Wendy. And
oh my gosh, we've
we'll come
so
up with a
appreciated.
plan B, but we'll need some time to figure it out.
Yeah. I have never seen such amazing note taking with shorthand. And I think it's a lost art. And Wendy certainly has provided extremely accurate minutes. And I so appreciate all the work you've done over time, Wendy. So thank you so much. And we are going to miss you desperately. I think we have till March
Yeah,
to find out what we're doing next. But thank you, thank you, thank you. So we are at the end of our agenda, and we have a closed session to go to, and it is now 12:49. Dave, do you have a class today?
No, Martha is covering me today at the school,
Okay.
so I'm fine.
So how much of a break would you like, everyone? 5 minutes, okay? You want 10? 5, 10? Raise your hands. Show me your fingers. 10 minutes? Excellent. I
How
think
about
we could all
10?
use.
How about 1?
How about we'll meet at 1 o'clock? That gives us 11 minutes. Okay.
Thank you.
See
Okay.
everyone. Thank you so much with this morning. You guys did awesome. Thanks.
And thank you, Kathy. Thanks. Bye.